Welcome, everybody, to the Champion Secrets podcast, where I interview high performers, athletes, entrepreneurs, and incredible humans who I consider champions, so we can all become champions in our own way. And I want to welcome to you guys Ebiye Jeremy Udo-Udoma, who's an incredible dude that I've met. We were just talking about it years ago in 2016, and I'm just super excited. He's an incredible human being, incredible athlete. And just super, super excited to dive into his story. And I'm sure you guys will grab some incredible nuggets. And yeah, welcome to the show, Ebiye.
Man, I appreciate the introduction, Christian. Looking forward to chatting with you. It's been great to be able to reconnect through social, and looking forward to just having a chat with you because it's been a while.
It has been a while, way too long, brother, man. Absolutely. Well, I guess to start off, just tell everybody who you are, Ebiye. Just like the 30-second minute, like if someone's like, hey, who are you?
As Christian said, I'm Ebiye Jeremy Udo-Udoma. First generation Nigerian American and multi-sport U.S. national team athlete in both handball and rugby. A nickname internationally is Handball Ninja, as you may be able to see on this shirt. I made my Team USA debut in 2014, and so 10 years going on year 11, donning the stars and stripes, and I've had the blessing of competing all across the globe and being able to do so in concert with the creating content, just sharing insights, nuggets, wisdom from my journey, interacting with people all over the world.
That's so cool. That's lovely. You've practiced that. That's lovely. That's fantastic, brother. I like that a lot. That's really, really good. Awesome. Well, yeah, take me back. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Take me back, because I know we met in 2016. I kind of want to get to know Ebiye, like maybe kind of how you grew up, where you grew up, all that, and kind of bring us all the way to that 2016, and then we can kind of dive into that a little bit.
And so I was actually born in Los Angeles, but for the most part, I grew up in a suburb of Portland, Oregon, called Lake Oswego.
Yep.
If you're familiar with Kevin Love, the basketball player, it's his hometown. He was actually a senior when I was a freshman growing up in
Wow, that's
Lake Oswego.
awesome.
Yeah, so he was kind of the golden child of town. But grew up in a suburb of Portland. Was involved in a number of sports: basketball, baseball, football, soccer, typical American sports. And also involved in a number of interests outside of sport. I was a competitive athlete, and I was involved in drama productions. And I just had a spectrum of interests, but always loved sports. And when I was 15 years old, it was during the Beijing Summer Olympic Games. And just flipping through different Olympic events, I happened to flip to a handball game right as somebody was jumping and scoring, and was immediately transfixed. Mostly because I was just trying to figure out what the game was. It looked like basketball, but it definitely wasn't basketball. And I hadn't watched a water polo game in person, and I thought it was that, but I didn't see water, so why would they call it water polo? But ultimately, at the end of the game, a decal came up and it said handball. And I didn't realize that handball was a legitimate Olympic professional sport until that Olympic Games. But I was immediately transfixed with the game, as I mentioned. And after the Olympics, just doing a search online, I found the Portland Sasquatch. There's a local adult handball club that practiced about a 25-minute drive from where I grew up, and sent them an email, which is kind of funny to say out loud. Sent them an email because now everything's on social media.
Yeah, you're like, nobody's gonna respond to an email these days.
Yeah, back when you found people through a website and you reached out to them via email, that's when I got involved in handball, to date my age. But they responded and they said, yeah, come out. And they kind of rope-a-doped me in a way, because the first time I came out, one of the players on the team was a German school teacher. And one of her units was part of her immersion, because handball is a huge sport in Germany. The European Champions League Final Four is always in Cologne, Germany. Right, so Germany's this huge handball nation. And one of the things she did as a part of immersion for her students was play handball with the Portland club. And the first time I came out, it was her high school students, so kids around my age. And I just stepped onto the court, and I'm kind of playing like basketball on a handball court. I didn't really know like the handball specific rules, but I was kind of making it up as I went along. And they invited me back. It's like, hey, like the proper club team is going to be here the next week. I was like, yeah, sure. I came back, but I come back the next week, and it's like all adults.
Like, all right,
And
I'm in for it.
yeah, I'm like, hey, where were all the kids like from
Yeah.
last week? It was like, no, like that's just like the there was a women's player, like that's just like those are students, they just came out one time, but this is the proper team. And
Yeah.
my mom had a little bit of hesitation, was like, what are you doing playing this random game with all these grown men? But
Yeah.
she drove me out nonetheless. And I kind of learned the game via osmosis. They put me on the wing and said, hey, when we get the ball, just cherry pick and run really
Mhm.
fast, and we'll take care of the rest. I was like, okay, run really fast, I can do. And I just kind of learned the game through watching the older, more experienced guys. But I played with them my junior, senior year. And I mean, alongside the other sports that I played, but yeah, my mom would drive me before I got my license to be able to play with them. I was the one non-adult on the team, and I was one of two American-born players on the team. Because handball's not a particularly popular sport in the States, and so the club was
Yeah.
comprised of those who grew up in Europe, Asia, who had relocated to Portland for any combination of life reasons, but they wanted to keep on playing the game that they played growing up. So that was, and
Mm.
that's actually the landscape of the majority of handball clubs in the United States. It consists of those who
Interesting.
relocate to the U.S. from a country where they grew up playing the game, where the sport is significantly more popular, and they want to keep
Mm.
playing recreationally as adults, and that's a big part of
Mm-hmm.
this club scene. But I was fortunate enough
Yeah.
that I happened to be within driving distance of a handball club when I discovered the sport. Because if
Yeah, that's
I grew up,
wild.
yeah, if I grew up 60 miles east, I wouldn't be talking to you right now.
Yeah.
And in retrospect, it is really wild. I say it was very serendipitous that when I discovered the sport, I was around one of a dozen or so handball clubs in a major city in the United
Yeah.
States at the time. Um, like I said, if I grew up maybe another 30 miles in any direction, I'm not talking to you. But nonetheless, played through high
Mm.
school, chose to go to Oregon State University because they were the one school in what was then the Pac-10. Now I lose track of NCAA
Oh yeah,
classifications.
I'm not good at that either.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like, okay,
but
college. Like that's what I say.
yeah, and but what was then the Pac-10? They were the one school in the Pac-10. I wanted to stay on the West Coast for school, but they were the one school
Mm.
in the Pac-10 that had a collegiate handball club, and that
Mm.
was a big part of why I chose to go there. And I played there for 2 years. After my second year, the U.S. national team had hired a new coach. He's not my current coach, but they hired a new coach, and they had open tryouts once a month in Colorado Springs, where one of our Olympic training centers is.
Mm.
Um, so when he got hired, he just wanted to get a feel for what the national pool was, see if there are any blue chip American athletes, and what the current U.S. national team pool was. And so they had open tryouts once a month. After finals, my second year, flew down to Colorado Springs and just went for an open tryout, hoping to maybe make the U21 national team before I turned 21. I figured only starting the sport at 15, it would be outside the realm of possibility to make a senior national team because I didn't like grow up playing the sport.
For sure.
But figured maybe there isn't too much competition at the U21 level. I was
Mm-hmm.
19 at the time and went to that tryout, and I played out of my mind. It just everything came together over that weekend. And he asked, "Are you Spanish? Are you French?" He was surprised that I was raised in the U.S. because most Americans don't discover what handball is at least until they become of adult age, just with
Yeah.
the sport. And he told me that at the end of that summer, that he's going to convene the senior national team pool for the first time as a coach in Lake Placid, where another one of our local trade
Mm.
centers. And told me train throughout the summer, and you just want to see how I did with the national team pool. So I trained the Portland guys all that summer, and I went and I played terribly. I played absolutely terribly. And I remember my exit interview. I was already apologizing to him before he could even say anything. I was like, I'm so
Yeah.
sorry for your time. I should have trained harder. I should have prepared more. Dot. And eventually he shut me up and he said, Ebiye, admittedly you weren't as ready as I thought, and you have a number of things to work on, but we'll be in touch.
Mm.
And a couple months later, he invited me into the national team residency program that was in Auburn University in Auburn, Alabama. Um,
Wow.
and it wasn't like, hey, you made Team USA. It's, hey, here's an
Yeah.
opportunity to train
Kind of like a
with
step in the right direction.
a step in
Yeah.
the right direction. And the only thing I knew about Auburn was that Cam Newton played there, but I
Oh
literally had
yeah.
no idea where it was on the map because
Like
I
where's
want
it
to say
going?
yeah, so 2010, when I graduated high school that year, Auburn played Oregon in the national title game.
Mm-hmm.
Cam won it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was familiar with Cam Newton, and I knew that Auburn was in the SEC, but I literally had no idea where it was on the map when he gave me this invite.
Yeah.
And so
You're
I
just
looked
like,
it
I'm
up.
in. I don't care where
Oh,
it is.
like, oh, I'm moving to Alabama. I never thought under those words in my life.
Yeah.
Uh, but life has a way of surprising you. And beginning of 2014, I made the move down to Auburn and um, played through the Rio Olympic cycle. We failed to qualify for Rio, but as far as what linked me to ultimately meeting you is in 2015 we had lost our qualifier for the Pan Am Games with Uruguay, which was the end
Mm.
of our Rio Olympic cycle. So that's March of 2015. The following month, and I thank God for him all the time. But shout out to my guy Willard Johnson, who was a defensive specialist on that indoor national team, and he was the one who was privy to beach handball. And there was this
Mm.
tournament, a 3 hour drive from where our national team residency program was based in
Mm-hmm.
Auckland. And he was like, "Hey, I found out this beach tournament," and he heard that the beach style of play was a little bit more similar to basketball, and he was a collegiate basketball player, and so
Got
he was
it.
stoked to try a version of handball that may have been a little bit more suited for him, and he's trying to get more of our national team guys in on it. And our indoor national team coach hated beach handball. He was like, you guys are grown adults, and I can tell you what you do, but I don't want you guys to play in the tournament. Dot dot dot. And like I
Oh.
said, I'm thankful to this day for Willard, who was gun ho, was like, hey, like we should play this beach tournament, and we had just got eliminated from Rio contention anyways, and we weren't competing
Mm.
time soon. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
what's a weekend at the beach possibly gonna hurt?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
It wasn't as if like we had to play the following week or the following day or anything.
Yeah.
We had a pretty sizable hiatus after just
Yeah.
from Rio contention, and we went to that tournament. And we actually sent two American teams. In retrospect, we split up essentially what made for a good offense in beach handball and a good defense in beach handball on two different teams. So one team was all
Mm.
offense, the other team was all defense, and we didn't even realize it at the time.
Whoops.
But nonetheless, my team ended up making it to the final, and we got destroyed by the Colombian national team because they actually knew how to play beach handball, and we were a bunch
Mm-hmm.
of indoor guys trying to play beach. And it wasn't pretty, but I fell in love with the experience, and I said, man, if I could do this full time, I would.
Wow.
Like just kind of jokingly. And fast
Yeah.
forward, so that was April of 2015.
Wow.
I made the decision after having a trial with a couple clubs overseas, Sweden, Switzerland that summer. I made the decision to move back home to Portland. I was planning on going back to school beginning of
Mm-hmm.
2016. I said, hey, I played for Team USA for an Olympic cycle and got to travel to South America. And I had a great experience, but let me kind of go back to the real world and go back to school. And so the
Mm-hmm.
fall of 2015, I'm back home in Portland and I'm just refereeing soccer and basketball games to pass the time before I
Wow.
go back to school beginning of 2016. I got pegged to referee the girls' highest classification state championship game,
Mm-hmm.
which was
Mm-hmm.
to this day like one of my proudest personal accomplishments.
That's
I
cool.
refereed over 40 high school games in one season, like basically every day of the week. I was
Wow.
doing
That's a
some,
lot.
yeah, like every day of the week, Sunday through Sunday, I was doing some combination of high school games, like club AAU games, and AAU basketball games. Just because like I was trying to keep myself busy, make some extra cash,
Mm-hmm.
and I got picked to be the head referee. And I want to say, I don't know if it's still the record, but at the time, I was the youngest referee to referee an Oregon highest classification state title game in any.
Wow. That's huge.
Yeah, it was one of those like just kind of cool personal accomplishments because I was 22 years old at the time.
Yeah.
Um, but did that game, and on my way home from that game in November 2015, I get a call from the man who's still my national team coach on the beach side to this day, Michael Ensign. He's like, "Hey, Yeah, and I know you from the indoor team, and I got your contact from someone in the federation. We're looking to field a men's beach national team at the Pan American Championships next April. And this was, again, November 2015.
Mm-hmm.
My mind, like, I said, like, hey, if I ever got the opportunity to play beach, I would take it. But in my mind,
Yep.
I was over handballing and going back to school. And we had a chat, and he's like, hey, just come down for a tryout. We're trying to build this. We hadn't had beach national teams really. I think there was one tournament that a women's team played in 2012, but they didn't like win any games. And then like back to the 90s before like the United States had beach national teams, right?
Wow.
It'd been a long time. And he's like, yeah, we're trying to really build this. There's a lot of excitement with the discipline. There's a lot of potential events on the horizon in a beach Olympics. And hopefully getting onto the summer, like the Summer Olympic program as well. So there's a lot of talk, a lot of excitement, and it's like, hey, let's just see if we can develop a team, build a team, and send it for this competition. That was the initial plan. And I mentioned Willard Johnson.
Yeah.
Uh, we were the two guys who weren't based in Southern California, where our national team coach is based. But once we heard about the opportunity, we kind of talked each other into it. It's like, well, if you go down, I'll go down. Well, if you're going down, I'm going down. And
Yeah.
we and he got here a little bit before I did in January 2016. I got down February 1st, 2016, just kind of tying up loose ends in
Yeah.
Portland. And it was not a pleasant conversation with my mother, who was assuming that I was going back to school. And
Yeah.
I took an audible and said, hey, I'm going to LA for this beach handball thing, and see if we can make this work. And I don't know what the end game is, but I know I would regret it if I didn't pursue it, and especially since I'd already dedicated this portion of my life to try
So
to
true.
play in Rio already. Right? And
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was over in March of 2015, but I get the second chance. It's like, hey, it's not necessarily the Olympic Games, but it's a Pan American Championship. It's a new game, and let's just see how the team does. And so February 1st, there was a handball tournament in San Francisco that I played
Yep.
with the Portland guys. And so I drove my car down with my mom, and she flew from San Francisco back to Portland. I kept on driving my car down.
Yep. Down the
And
coast is a great drive.
yeah, like I five, it's a beautiful drive. I definitely prefer flying. I just am not a
Agreed.
fan of a car for a dozen plus hours. But it really is a gorgeous drive. And I remember when I got to LA, I didn't have a plan for a place to stay. It was just like I had to get down to LA. And I remember the first night, like I said, I just took I-5 essentially until I hit USC. And I'm like, okay, I'm in LA now. And I just pulled over that first night. I just slept somewhere on USC's campus. I can't even tell you where. I was just like tired and delirious, but I found parking. Woke up the next day. I kept on going south on I-5, and I was familiar with 24-hour fitness because I had a 24-hour fitness membership in Portland.
Mm.
And it's funny now because I currently don't have a 24-hour fitness membership because I'm doing this interview from my house. But 24-hour fitness essentially became my safe haven. It became home for me whenever I needed to shower, rinse off, change clothes, whatnot. Fortunately, in Southern California, there's a 24 basically every like 10, 15 miles in the greater LA
Yep.
area. And there's a really nice one in Downey, like right off of I-5.
Mm-hmm.
So before I got settled with like South Bay and the beach, because I literally was just in LA,
Yep.
and just trying to figure out like, okay, how am I going to make things work? I had work opportunities through the sports modeling agency, and so I was active. I mean, I was trying to figure out LA and kind of navigate, where I want to sleep at night and how I'm going to make life happen and how I'm going to make
Yeah. And live this
things.
lifestyle as an athlete. Yeah.
Sure. It's the beach athlete lifestyle, especially if you couch up. And I know you told me your story when we first met, which we'll get into.
Yeah.
But it's just me just really just trying to figure out how to live out of my car and just navigate everything in Southern California and training for the team. And over time, I essentially found the 24-hour fitness I was closest to where I was going to start my next day. and I would find a place I could park my car close to that. And so when I need to start a day, I would hop in, shower, go into the office, go to whatever on shoot, or just wake up and then go to practice, whatever it was. And then eventually I found a routine. Maybe a dozen or so parking violations
Oh yeah,
later.
especially there. Yeah.
It's crazy. Like SoCal street signs will be like no parking Monday, Thursday, Friday from 12:01 to 3:56 when the moon's in Saturn. Like it's ridiculous. Like
That's so brutal.
it's rough. And only place in the world I've had my car towed. I think I've had my car towed twice. Just it'll be like no parking, like 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. on that day. Like I park somewhere at 1, I lose track of time, and I'm back at 3:04. My car's gone. And having your car towed is not a cheap process in SoCal.
No.
It's a $500 process just getting your car back. Because they give you a ticket for whatever violation led to the towing. They charge you for the distance from them towing from where they're towing to where they have to drop it off. And then there's a waiting fee for how long it takes for you to get there. And then there's a retrieval fee to get the car. Like, this is
what is going on here? This is a scam. Yeah.
But it's funny to talk about this with you now because
for sure.
It's humble beginnings. It's the type of stories where you realize how far you've come knowing what you've gone through. And it's just funny to this on. I literally slept hundreds of days in my car, and I joke that my car is more comfortable to sleep in than my bed. I don't know what it is.
Just because you got used to it, I think. The angle.
When I sleep in my bed, I'm sore. Like when I sleep in beds, I'm sore. Like my car is like the most comfortable thing, and I don't know if my body adapted to it or if it's just the surface. Maybe I need to get material of my old car, like that car seat. I need to put that in my bed.
That's your sheets, or like exactly.
Yeah, just thinking about it. But
that's awesome.
But yeah,
man, that is.
No, I'll let you go. But I was gonna say, ultimately, we ended up winning that 2016 Pan American Championship. We had this miraculous run. We call it the miracle on sand. That 2016 class did in Venezuela, because we, by the slimmest of margins, made the semifinal. We had a do or die game in the quarterfinal against Ecuador. We won it in golden goal. It was like buzzer, like time expired. It was like last second
your
win.
last shot.
Yeah, literally. That's how we won our quarter. And then we faced the host country and number 1 seed at the time, Venezuela. I played the game of my life, and we eked out the win in overtime to not just qualify for the final, but qualify for the World Championship, which if we don't win that game, I still remember the date, April 1st, 2016. It was the day that changed my life. If we don't win against Ecuador and Venezuela on that day, I'm probably not talking to you right now. I don't think
you're going back home. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I'm going back home. I don't necessarily think handball is even a thing right now. Like, to be completely honest, like winning at least that semifinal to qualify us for Worlds, that's what kept the journey going. We ended up winning against Uruguay in a shootout the following day to win that championship. And we, as a team, was like, well, like, hey, we're playing in a World Championship. We got to keep the ball going, and everything just kind of rolled from there. But it's funny just telling you the story. There were a number of moments that if one thing was different, the whole journey wouldn't have happened. Again, I mentioned Willard Johnson, who I got to play with for 7 years, give or take, on the speech national team, and one of my favorite people in the world. He actually is heading up another beach sport in the U.S., beach korfball. They play
korfball.
Korfball. It's like basketball with like a slightly bigger hoop and no back.
Okay. Good for him. Wow.
Yeah. So he's essentially been the catalyst for 2 U.S. beach sport national teams.
Dang.
Which is, to his credit, quite the accomplishment. So shout out to my guy, Willie Johnson.
Willie Johnson, you're the man, dude. That's
awesome. The work he's doing with U.S. Beach Korfball. They're based in, he's originally from Everest, Washington, and I think he's around Seattle. And there's a crew of Seattle-based, primarily former basketball players who just played the most recent beach korfball world championships, because that's a discipline of, similar to handball, a discipline of korfball, which is a world game sport and a semi-popular sport around the world. The beach discipline of it is relatively new, similar to how beach handball was kind of a relatively new discipline of indoor handball when he got into that. And so he's been, like I said, he's been a catalyst for two different beach sports growing in the United States. So shout out to my guy, Willie.
Wow. Shout out. He's got a lot of athletes to be thanking him. That's for sure. That's for sure.
100%. 100%. But yeah, we met that year, 2016. I don't know if you want to prompt a question to talk about how we met, or
oh yeah, no, we can. Yeah, no, and before we get into that, I'm really curious. Well, not curious, but just like you said, like there's so many situations along your journey. Like even just when you started, like you said, like 1 of 12. Like you had one that, like, how close was it to you? It was within like 30 miles. The club was.
It was a 25-minute drive.
Oh, nice. Okay, so your mom, that was easy for your mom to get you there, and like for you to, because it's funny, because my journey kind of was the same. Like when I started, like it was no kids, it was just me and adults, and I was just like, what the heck? But like as a kid, you're like, what the heck? But as you age and as you get older, you're like, I'm so thankful for that. Like if I didn't have these mature dudes like teaching me this game at this point, pivotal time in my life, like I don't know where I would have, like I don't know where I would be too. So that is really, really cool that you just portrayed like those situations. That was like, yeah, you could have just packed up and left too. One, from not only your hometown having a club there, which is so rare. Two, and then there's other situations too, but two coming to my mind is that Ecuador and going literally at home in Venezuela on their turf to win that. And like if you didn't, like you said, you probably would have packed up and maybe gone back to, reffing and doing your thing back at home. Like, and like that is just so wild to me. And just to know that you are meant to be playing the sport, and where you are is where you're meant to be. And it's just such a beautiful thing to see you show your light and be the person that you are, because whatever you believe in at home, like there's something like along your journey that is like keeping you, going along that journey. Cause like you said, there's so many pivotal moments that was like, you could have just like all those hundreds of days in your car, you could have just been like, oh, I'm just gonna, maybe I should just go home, or a bad day of practice, or bad like this or that. Like that was probably in your mind. So tell me, like, what do you think in you, or what like kept you going along that one question? And then also like what do you think deeper was like helping you go through those things and literally like pass through those things and just it all end up how it's meant to?
And I can't say it was anything rational.
Yeah.
I just got to a point in my life where I felt intuitively that this is where I was meant to be, and I didn't really know how it was all going to work out. I mean, you obviously have a vision of what you want to accomplish. I think things are going to be, but just in my heart of hearts, I just had to be in SoCal and just see what this path was able to provide for me. And I think part of it, in retrospect, I'm really glad I grew up in Oregon and in Portland, because it's known for being a weird place.
For sure. I love the Pacific Northwest, but it is,
yeah,
for sure.
It's known for being a weird place, but it somewhat primed me for non-conventional lifestyles in a way. And I remember being at Oregon State and discovering what's referred to as digital nomadism. Yeah. And I didn't know that, Instagram was going to be a thing that was going to be such a prevalent part of my life at the time. But just this idea that there were people who were living location independent lifestyles. And that was all a new thing to me, but I was somewhat getting privy to it growing up in Oregon, and also understanding like minimalism. I would say I could track back to my time in Oregon. It's like, do I actually really need like a house? Like it really, this idea of like, hey, you can make things work. It's more important that you're in the environment that's allowing you to pursue your dream than it is to be in a comfortable one. And like I said, once we won that first Pan Ams, yeah, and one of my goals went viral on social media as well. that just reaffirmed to me, it's like, hey, yeah, you're gonna make it work, regardless of results or regardless of what's meant to be. Is like, you're meant to be here. I definitely fell in love with the game. Fell in love with the idea of being able to travel around the world through playing a game, and there was a lot of excitement. There was a lot of excitement with the potential of what a beach sport that was birthed in the same area that beach volleyball was birthed. I saw area Manhattan Beach, Formosa Beach. Another beach sport, found its roots in the same place we were trying to grow ours, and became this professional Olympic sport all around the world. And that was also in the back of my mind, to be able to grow in concert with the sport. That's a much better story to tell than to do something that's already established. And to try to be a creator and originator in that sense. And I would say it's just, one, loving the game, and then two, the excitement of what the game could become, because we had the opportunity to host the 2018 Pan American Championships. And there was this talk about the Beach Olympics, or the Anaheim Beach Games, being formulated, and this idea that beach sports were just on the rise as a whole. And to be I don't want to say the ground level of the sport, because the discipline had been played for about a decade and a half internationally at that point. But it wasn't nearly as developed as indoor handball when I was on that national team, which has been on the Olympic program since 1972.
Wow.
And so countries are very well established on the indoor side of things. Beach is still an up and comer. So countries that were good on the side, who hadn't necessarily invested on the beach side, we could be competitive with. And so realizing that we could very quickly develop a world-class team, or a world title contending team, versus what we could do on the indoor side, plus this idea that beach sports as a whole were rising, and we were in seemingly the perfect place to do it in the US, because there's another beach sport in this exact area that found the blueprint and really blew up. And I think just really just leaning on my faith, knowing that if I lived a conventionally successful life, that wouldn't necessarily be my idea of fulfillment.
That's
because a
powerful.
lot of people have done that, and I was always someone who wanted to leave a unique legacy, even if it wasn't the great. And just the opportunity that I had with this game, it seemed like all the stars aligned to make it happen. I can't say that it was glamorous, but it felt like it was where I was meant to be in my life. And I say just leaning on faith. And it was like, hey, like, you don't necessarily need to have a warm, cozy place to sleep in, but if you have just a place to sleep in, if you have fresh air to breathe, and you get the opportunity to train in this game, like, what really more do you need in life? And that's really just what kept me going. It was like, I had my health, I was growing as an athlete, I had opportunities around Los Angeles, both within and outside of the game, and progressively my profile within the beach sports space, within the beach handball space, it started to blow up. And just feeling like I was really on this journey that there was a light at the end of the tunnel. I didn't necessarily know what it was, but it's just this inkling feeling that, one day is going to be my day. And I remember, like, there were times where, and it's funny to think about it now, but I remember that first year, because I was still trying to figure out Los Angeles, right? Like, I got
that's a whole new world.
That's a whole dynamic. I got more tickets than I could count. I had more police officers like wake me up, sleeping in my car than I could count. But I remember whenever I was anxious and then not really sure about anything. I don't know if you know the musician Big Sean.
Yeah.
So I'm big, and so he has a song, "One Man Can Change the World," and I would just sing that to myself to fall asleep if I was ever anxious in my car. And and this is a story that I told when I won USA Team Handball Athlete of the Year in 2022. But I would literally just recite like the verses to that song, like just in my car at 3 a.m. And I'm just like, I don't know if I'm going to make it, but just kind of feeling that like I was one man who had an opportunity to change the world and see what was possible through this new game and where it could go globally, and just leaning my faith in that. And then that's really just what kept me going year after year, competition after competition. And like I said, it wasn't glamorous by any stretch of the imagination, but things progressively got better, both on and off the court. And now I can say I've competed in 23 countries internationally. 20 of those since I started playing beach, and that includes all 6 continents, which was something that I crossed off continent number 6 in 2022. Got to compete. So that's probably one of the cooler like factoids of my career. Is not many athletes, even professional athletes, Olympic athletes, can say that they got in every continent, minus Antarctica. There's not much beach handball there, but at least the other 6 I've gotten to play on, and I've gotten to meet so many beautiful souls all around the world, including yourself, and it's been quite the journey, to say the least.
Yeah.
But,
man.
I think that's a big thing. Leaning on faith that one day will be your day. As long as you do the best you can where you're at, that's all you can do. And just faith that one day will be your day.
Yep. And that's what's in our control, is like actually like focusing on that. Like, and if we can focus on the things that, like, all those things that we can control, if we can like get rid of those, it'd be great. But it's hard in reality, in like the day to day.
Oh, for sure.
Wow, that's so cool. Just the way you portrayed that, like saying you knew you had like a unique thing going for you. You knew you had like, but you also like had this feeling that like I could go this conventional easy route, or I could be uncomfortable and go after my dreams and really do the things that I know I'm called to do, because all these things are kind of falling into place, even though there are hard days, like you said, it's not glamorous at all. But yeah, like, how do you think that's shaped you as a man? And do you think like your parents portrayed that to you, or do you think you just kind of like grew up with those values?
It's a really good question. I'll say I remember my 18th birthday, and so flashback to being at Oregon State. Uh, I just felt very low. Like I felt like I was at a low point in life, and life didn't really go how I thought it would by that stage in my life, which I don't think is an uncommon thing to say because I'm a teenager. But yeah, life just didn't go how I thought it would. I thought I'd be, as much as I love playing handball, I thought I'd be at school, playing basketball somewhere, and because that was my first love, was basketball. And I just remember like being in my second year of school and knowing I didn't like school. Love playing handball. Love the people that I met and learned a lot, but definitely was not interested in pursuing an academic route, which is tough because I grew up in a really academic family. My mom's a Harvard Law grad, dad's a grad, so I grew up in a family that really prized and treasured academia, and I just knew in my heart of hearts it wasn't for me, and I didn't really know what light was at the end of the tunnel. Right? It's tough. It's like what you don't want, but not knowing what you want, and it's a tricky place to be in life. And not to say that I was suicidal, but I was definitely depressed, and you kind of come to this realization is like, there's got to be more to life. As you see on the shirt, this is a caricature of me in the style of Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is my all-time favorite anime. And the protagonist of that show, Aang, he has a saying that when we're at our lowest points, we're open to the greatest change. And I think, it's being 18 going on 19. And just feeling like life as I knew it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. It wasn't where I wasn't on the timeline of success that I wanted to be on, right? Which I don't think it's a common thing, especially as a teenager, right? But but a little bit of this, like, let's just go for broke, right? You get one life, and if you're really not living a fulfilling one, it's just kind of a waste of the gift, right? And I think that's what really propelled me to take the opportunity to move to LA when it came up, not necessarily knowing how I was going to make it happen. It was just my heart of hearts. I knew that there had to be something a little bit more than kind of a path that was lined up for me. If that answers the question. It was, I don't know if it was a family thing. I think it was just I got to a point in my life where I hit a pretty low point, and I was just open to change and open to exploring, and I think in a way, kind of transcending the fear of death or the fear of my own ego. It's like, oh, like you just got to live your best life. Um,
Mm,
don't You're gonna regret that. Like
yeah.
it's gonna feel as if like you're dead inside, and so yeah, you get the opportunity to try something new, to do something new. I was at a stage in my life where it's like, yeah, let's go for it. Let's go for Team USA. Let's try to be an Olympian. Let's see where the sport of handball takes you. And then on that same inkling, when we didn't qualify for Rio, but I got the opportunity at beach, it was like, well, even though indoor is a more popular game, it's like you came into the sport of handball and you came into USA Team Handball to try to be a pioneer in it and try to accomplish
Yep.
something that I accomplished. And this is an opportunity to really be a pioneer for something and do something that
Yes.
been done, because I got to be on the ground floor of a national team that is still going strong to this day. After
Incredible.
26, we've won another 3 continental championships since then, and I've played in the World Beach Games, the World Games, and I'll find out in the next couple of weeks if I'll be in Paris 2024. So um, yeah, I guess I'd say just kind of hitting a low point in life, and
Mm,
yeah, giving perspective of how precious life is, and how important it is to just try to make the most of it.
yeah.
That is really what kind of shaped my mindset around that stage of my life to kind of go for it.
That's cool. That's really cool. Cause yeah, so many, even myself, I know when I've gone through the darkest of valleys and the hardest times and like, and then like on the way up, like, I feel like those are the times that everyone's just made. And then you're like you're saying, like, man, like, why would I go this whole conventional way that everyone else is going? Like, I should just go after this thing that I know is within me and just go after it. And like if all else fails, whatever, but I'm gonna go all in on this and like kind of put your blinders on and be like, screw that. Like everybody wants me to do academics, this and that, but I'm gonna pursue what's within me because I think so many of us have that in us, but we choose the comfortable route that is, whatever that is, a job or this or that, or those things that just keep us kind of stuck, even though it's like God has incredible plans for each and every one of us. And we don't, like, some of us won't even like reach that because we're so caught up in the conventional way of life as we know it, or as explained. But wow, that is really, really cool. So yeah, I guess now let's get into kind of how we met. I know we talked about it earlier. It's 2016 when you moved out there. I was a couple years into my beach volleyball career out there, and I was couch surfing, trying to figure out how to make it work, playing a beach sport, and trying to pursue my dream. And I know we were both kind of like going back on each other, like, you could do it, you could do it, like just encouraging each other because, like, what are we doing here? But we're gonna figure it out. Like, oh, what an experience and a time that was. Where were you in life at that point?
And because I was 20, I think it was before the World Championship, and maybe after we won our Pan American Championship. I was 22 years old, 22 or
Yep.
23
Yep.
when we met. And I still remember meeting you at Starbucks in Hermosa.
Starbs.
I
Yep.
was bumming their Wi-Fi for something that I had to get done.
Yeah, me
So
too.
I wasn't like in a residence. So yeah, 24-hour fitness and Starbucks was how I managed life in Los Angeles for the first couple of years I was there. But I just remember meeting you at Starbucks. We struck up a conversation, and you mentioned that you moved out from Arizona to really pursue beach volleyball, and that was inspiring to me to know that you'd been there for a couple of years and you're doing it. And you mentioned you were couch surfing, and so just to meet somebody else who didn't necessarily have like a comfortable situation, but ultimately made a move from out of state to pursue beach sport life in South Bay, because it really is beautiful. Like it's a beautiful part of the country, and
Really is. Can't beat
it's
it.
it's a tough vibe to explain to people waking up, heading to the beach, training at the beach, because most people associate the beach with vacation, but
Yes.
not necessarily like a day to day or week to week. It's like, hey, I come here to put work in, but it's a really beautiful grind. Like
Mm-hmm.
style that you embrace, where you wake up and you train, and then you take a dip into the Pacific Ocean, which in
Yep.
in January is more a type of character than anything else, but something that you grow to appreciate. And now being able to train on the stand and hop into the Pacific is definitely something I don't take for granted in being able to do it every day, because it really is its own lifestyle, and different than a lot of other sports that I've played, which I'm sure you can relate to.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely rough trying to figure out like how you're gonna make life in LA work.
For sure.
And, especially before you make it, just trying to figure out training. And I've heard war stories of some of the beach volleyball players here with their partners, and I can only imagine stories you may or may not have. But at least on the handball side, I don't have that particular dynamic. It's like
Yeah.
it's a crew of guys, not necessarily picking particular partners, but.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just remember meeting you, and we had a conversation over essentially pursuing similar beach sport paths, coming
Yep.
from out of state, and just kind of vibed on that. It's just good energy all around. And I know just chatting with you, and one of the things that also inspired me about you is, as far as volleyball players go, you're on the shorter side.
Oh, for
Uh,
sure. Big time. Yeah.
yeah, but you kind of carving out a play style, not having a prototypical body for your sport. That was something that was inspiring
Mm,
at the time, because
yeah.
handball wise, I am on the shorter side. I'm
Mm-hmm.
actually like the second shortest guy on my U.S. national team right now. I play with a
Wow.
bunch of giants, and I kind of facilitate for
Giant
them.
dudes.
Yeah, but your presence and your story was inspiring to me when we met, just because you had been there for a couple of years, and
Mm,
you're navigating things, you're making things work, and you were also shorter than average for your beach sport. There's just a lot of things in your journey, in your story, that was inspiring to me when we first met. And so I
right.
always thought highly of you, and I'm glad that we're able to reconnect and kind of talk about the journey, because as you know, life happens, and there's so many people you come across, and there's so many things that you got to
Mm-hmm.
do. But when you come across really cool people on the journey, and you can stay in touch and connect, it's really one of the beautiful things, and one of
Amen.
the unsung blessings people don't tell you about
It's
is
so
all,
true.
all the people you don't necessarily know that you're going to meet, that you get to meet. And,
Mm-hmm.
and I've really come to cherish just the cool people that I've met on the journey, because
Yeah.
you're focused on the game, and then that the game is why you're there. You're not necessarily
Yep.
there for the friends, or there for the people, but when you do meet cool people, it's a blessing. So
It really is.
definitely fun experience meeting you for the first time in Starbucks, and just having a chat over our various beach sport experiences. I don't know what you recall of meeting me, or uh, if you have any recollection of when we first met on your end.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I remember the first thing was like, "Oh, someone's doing it like I am. Like someone's trying to do the same thing I am. This is great." And someone that's out of town, that like I need to hang out with this dude more often, because everybody's all these California people, and like I was just like, this dude's all in on his sport, and he's like just knowing like a little bit that you shared with me. I don't think you shared too much with me about it, but coming from where you came from at that point, I was like, wow, this dude is literally kind of like burning the ships and going and committing to this. And it's like that was something that I was like felt like I was doing, but I think you inspired me to be even like cut even more of the boats, like even just go even more all in, just like yeah, and just knowing that we were both in a similar place, I think really was like just encouraging to me and inspiring to me to know that someone it's like we all don't want to be alone as humans, knowing that someone else is going through probably a lot of the similar things we are going through, whether that's trying to find a place to sleep, whether that's sleeping in our cars, whether that's sleeping on the beach, like to know someone else is going through that, I think for me, and just knowing that the fire and the presence, and just like you were all in on it, and went like that was the thing I gathered. I was just like, this dude is like committed. Like there's a lot of people that are like, oh, I'll drink a little bit on a train. It's like, no, dude, this dude's training. So that was really inspiring to me upon our meeting in Starbucks. We're 2024 now, so that's wow, yeah, that's 8 years ago.
7.5 years ago. Jeez, time flies. And,
That's
but yeah, I
wild.
definitely concur with you. It definitely helps when you're on a less than traveled path, but you know that there's at least one other person going through something similar. It's like, okay, I'm not too crazy, but I know that like what we're doing is noble. There's somebody else who is kind of going through something similar. It's like we'll get through the other side one
Yep,
way or, and so it's
exactly.
definitely inspiring for me when I met you. It was like, okay, like somebody who was also pursuing a beach sport and just trying to make it work in South Bay in the area. It was definitely assuring to me when we first met. So nice to know that I had a similar effect on you.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, ABA. That's really cool. And so like from that point on, like after we said, see you later, dude, like what was you were probably going to train your double day, you're probably going to hit the gym, like and was that kind of the beginning of where you kind of went to all those 20 countries and were able to see those 6 continents? Like that was kind of was that like the beginning of really ABA, like who you are now and the incredible things you've accomplished as a handball athlete?
Yeah, it's actually like right after we met. I got my nickname Handball Ninja in November 2016.
Oh, wow.
Ironically enough, I did get to play in Rio in 2016, but it was an exhibition friendly in
Oh,
beach handball
incredible.
against the Brazilian national team. So
Wow.
um, ultimately got to accomplish the goal of playing in Rio in 2016, even though it wasn't necessarily that summer.
Hmm.
And during that game, Brazil beat us pretty handedly, but I was our team's leading scorer, and I scored a goal. And I've done what's now a signature celebration where I do like a somersault uh, when I substitute off the court. And I'm still thankful to this day. And it's a story that I've shared across my social mediums. But Maradona Marquez, I'm forever grateful to him. He called me the American Ninja. Uh,
American Ninja.
yeah,
Nice.
so it started with the American Ninja, and I remember
Yeah.
after the game, even though we lost the game, I had a bunch of Brazilian kids come up to me and ask me, I was like, Ninja, 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 Ninja.
You're
We're
like, that
playing.
sticks.
Uh, yeah, like, I was like, hey, maybe there's something to this whole ninja thing. And ironically, and again, talking about the serendipity of the whole thing. So there's this region we played in Rio, but there's this region in Northeast Brazil, like they just know me as the American Ninja. And
Mm.
following month, the International Handball Federation had a social media campaign called Handball Ninja. And
Wow.
somebody in USA Team Handball like basically sent like my clips to the IHF.
Yep.
They dubbed me Handball Ninja. And I was like,
Yep.
well, in Brazil they call me the American Ninja. International Handball Federation call me Handball Ninja. Maybe there's something to this ninja thing.
Yeah.
And I had an experience earlier in the summer um, where I was given the nickname of Ninja. I went to like a random leadership event, and they called me the Ninja of the event. And I was like, well, 3 different dissimilar
Yeah.
environments have referred to me as some sort of ninja in this calendar year. Maybe there's something to it, right? And I decided in December 2016 to switch all of my social media handles to Handball Ninja.
Yep.
And so Facebook, Instagram, YouTube was just like at Handball Ninja, and it just stuck. And as I went to compete in 2017, instead of people butchering my first name Ebiye, which is pretty common, opponents started calling me Ninja. Like
Mm.
they didn't call me my name, it's like Ninja, or like other
That's
coaches.
Ninja. That's not ABA. Don't call him ABA anymore. It's
Yeah.
Ninja.
Yeah. And that's it. Ninja, Handball Ninja grew just as a brand. And the beautiful thing was, although I had competitive aspirations, I mentioned I worked in the sports commercial space, um, and being able to merge my competitive drive with my creative drive through social media, which is the thing that coming out of high school, I didn't know was going to be how people made careers. It wasn't something where I was growing up where people said, yeah, I want to be a YouTuber or I want to be a content
Yep.
creator growing up. That wasn't really a thing. But as I got out of high school, Instagram actually launched my freshman year of college.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
just like for time perspective, but over time, you see the power in how people who aren't necessarily doing things that are mainstream can find an audience, find a niche audience all around the world through social media. And that happening in concert with me growing with a new national team was this
Mm.
perfect match in heaven because it wasn't a popular sport in the US, but I'm trying to find sponsors and I'm also trying to grow the national team. I'm just trying to grow the sport as well.
Mm-hmm.
And sharing the journey and sharing my highlights, sharing goals. I'm now able to connect with people all over the world. I'm getting playing opportunities um, in China and in different countries. It's like, hey, like, you know, these people see Handball Ninja playing with Team USA and playing other club competitions. It's like, hey, can you play with my team in Australia? Can you play with my team in China? And now I'm getting opportunities to play this game in parts of the world that I didn't have any plans on traveling to. But 2017, I got to play in the club circuit in Brazil for the first year, and I ended up playing there 2017 to 2019. Got an opportunity to play in Adelaide, Australia, in 2017. My national team, the national team was growing, and then Handball Ninja was growing, and growing independently, and then they're also growing in concert with one another. And started growing the platform primarily through Instagram, and as the team is gaining more success, it was just a perfect match made in heaven, where through creating content, just sharing my journey, and then also playing really well on the court, I'm getting opportunities, I'm getting sponsors to keep the dream alive.
Yep.
And progressively over time, I'm putting more and more effort into Handball Ninja and growing it. And as I'm recruiting fans from all over the world, some of those fans are really artistically talented, and they're doing rotoscopes of me, and they're doing drawings of me, like this one, like that's on merch now. It was just this really, I mentioned the word serendipitous, but it really was this serendipitous deal where I was going as a player. The world really gave me this nickname. It's like, this is fine, just take it and run with it. Like, I'm giving you like 3 different groups in 3 different countries are all referring to you. There's actually 3 different continents are all calling you. This is your sign. You're the ninja. Take it and
Stick
go
with it. Don't think of anything
thing.
else. Go all in.
Yeah, and in retrospect, it was the perfect nickname. Just my style of play as a player, and then how I traverse different disciplines, indoor and beach. Doing interviews and connecting with people. Like it was the perfect nickname. And like I said, everything just progressively grew over time. Things started coming together, and yeah, it's wild to think that it was the end of 2015, beginning of 2016, where I moved down to Southern California, and now the beginning of 2024. It's been 23 countries, but 20 countries specifically through beach handball. And it's wild to me because I didn't have wanderlust growing up. I didn't get into this because I wanted to travel the world or have any aspirations to travel the world. But when compete internationally, it's just a part of the description. But I've been beyond blessed to be able to see the world through playing sport and be able to represent Team USA, but then also be able to compete in club competition with people who speak so many different languages that aren't English, but still want to interact with me just because I'm an athlete. And it's been, I turned 30 in June, and I did a reflection of my 20s. I posted on social. I said it would be a disservice to say that this has all been a dream come true, because I couldn't agree. It's really been what I've gotten to do on and off the sand over the past 8 years around the world, because most pro athletes don't have the ability to say that they got to play in every continent, even those who play internationally and
it's
play
super rare.
It's just really extremely rare, and that's one of the things where I look back on the journey of my 20s, and from 20 to 29, I got to play in every continent at least once, minus Antarctica. And if you told me that that's how it was going to be in 2016 or how it was going to happen, like, no.
Good luck. You're like, who are you talking to? Are you talking to me?
Way I could have explained how this is all going to work out. Every year, I just put my head down and just try to get better at my craft, and just try to connect with progressively more people through my journey. And that was my focus. And then the opportunities just came off of that. I couldn't have planned half of what has happened. Like, I really couldn't have, because like a video of mine goes viral on social media, and a kid who sees it, whose dad is a manager at a club, is like, hey, my son likes you. I see you, ... What would it take for you to play in Poland? Like, that's literally how I got to a Polish club. Was the son of a manager of my team in Gdańsk. Sends me a message on Instagram, and it's a funny story because initially sends me a message on Instagram. It's like, hey, I'm a big fan, ... April Fool's coming up. As an April Fool's joke, can we say that you're signed to our team? And I was like, yeah, sure. I'll play along with like an
Go
Instagram
for
challenge.
it.
Like I had like content prep, I signed to their club, Like I played along with it. And we did the April Fool's joke, like, hey man, like so cool, like we're a big fan of you, And apparently, like I said, the kid who's the son of like the manager of the club was like running their social. And he's like, hey, like my dad's actually the manager of this club. Like, what would it take to sign you? I'm like, and so I'm looking into like the Polish league for beach handball. Actually, with one of the nicer beach handball leagues, it's really grown into it. The Pekaniga Summer Superliga. I was like, oh, this is a great opportunity, actually. Like looking at it, and like it was the youngest team in the league. It wasn't like I'm going to this perennial powerhouse within Poland, but like it's just like this young, ambitious club that had some financial support. And I was like, well, if you're serious, like, if you can get me this, like I'd actually like to play in Poland. It seems like a great opportunity. It's up and coming league. It's like, let me get back to you. He gets back to me a couple of days later. Is like, we can meet your demands. Like, do you really want to play for us? I'm like seriously? It's like, yeah. And so yeah, like summer 2022, I played out in Poland, and Poland is probably one of my favorite countries in the world. Which, like growing up, I didn't know Poland from. Actually, the only thing I think I knew about Poland growing up was that the world's strongest man, Mariusz Kuznowski.
Oh, yep.
Yeah. Otherwise, I knew nothing about Poland.
Zero. Right? Like, where is it? I don't know. Is it cold? Is it warm? I don't know.
Yeah. But no, so this club team in Gdańsk, which is on the Baltic coast of Poland, is like one of the most secretly most gorgeous places in the world. Yeah. Like, this is Poland? It's like I didn't know Poland. I didn't like when you think of beautiful locations in Europe, you're probably thinking of like Paris, Madrid. Oh, yeah. I was like, I didn't know coastal Poland was as gorgeous as it was, and getting the opportunity to play there and having a community really embrace me. And I really love just the Polish way of life. Like, people just kind of go about their business. It's not so hectic that people won't take time to talk to you if you want to have a conversation. It's just a really beautiful place, and I've been fortunate to play there the past few years. But it literally started through a joke on Instagram, and then April Fools. It's literally April Fool's joke. It's like I tell everybody, like, being a part of that team is the best April Fool's joke ever.
Yeah, you guys got me good.
Yeah, exactly. Literally April Fool's joke through Instagram, and then it was like, hey, like, what would it take for you to actually play for us? And the last 2 years I've played for a team in Gdańsk, Poland, and it's been an absolutely incredible journey. Just where beach handball's taken me, but it's not something I could have planned by any stretch of the imagination. Just kind of one serendipity after another. Just put my head down and try to get better as a player every year, every off season, and just try to grow as a creator as well. And realize that was really my way to connect with the world and accrue opportunities, because it's difficult as an up and comer in a beach sport just to make things work. And you got to get, before you become the Phil Dahlhauser, like you got to get creative with how you're going to make things work, and pursue things in addition to or outside of your playing career, but things that allow you the flexibility to still train. And if the smartphone wasn't invented, one, I'm taking this call from a smartphone, so I literally wouldn't be on. But
exactly.
I'm so grateful that smartphones are a thing. Just like I wouldn't have the career I do without it. Just with what social media is providing opportunities and ways to connect with people, with opportunities, with sponsors outside of your immediate environment. If particularly if you do something that isn't mainstream, if you do something that isn't established, it's provided a platform for talented but idiosyncratic people all over the world to really share what it is that they do. And I'm grateful that this whole journey happened in concert with the rise of content creators. Because otherwise I wouldn't be here. As much as I've grown as a player, the journey wouldn't have subsisted if I wasn't also a creator.
Wouldn't have been sustainable long term.
Yeah, 100%. But I'm just grateful to have grown up in the era that I did, where
Yeah.
for media was a thing, and people are interested in novel things that they don't necessarily see on TV, but
Hmm.
still indicative of talent or prestige or
Yep.
acumen. And just having Instagram as a platform to share the journey and to connect with people all over the world. And just extremely grateful for just kind of how the stars aligned in that respect.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. Like you like just like we said, going back after we met, you had those three different continents, people saying, dude, ninja's the way. You're like,
Right.
I'm all in on this ninja thing and like going all in on this handball ninja. And as you're doing that, you're improving your craft tremendously. Like you said, you're grinding in the off season, in season. And then, like you said, this creator thing, you started seeing some things go viral as you're becoming like both of these things are like up and up, like you're getting your creator thing going and the athlete going like all at the same time. Because yeah, I mean, us as athletes, beach athletes, like a lot of people try to figure it out. They try to, do bartending at a bar in
Bartending,
Hermosa
coaching
for
sport.
like, yeah, people try everything or something, and it's like, okay, like you're gonna be up till 2 a.m. Your competitors are gonna be grinding while and sleeping, getting some good sleep while you are making money so that you can do your thing. So, wow, that just sounds like you said, the perfect storm in every way for you to not only improve as an athlete, but as this whole creator economy, just like creating where you can get sponsorships and you can sell your own products and you can talk with people all over the world. Like what has that, I mean, you told me a little bit about what that's like, but like, yeah, like you said, like there's no other way to do it in this day and age as an athlete unless you're in the NBA or the NFL or any of those things that are paying you tremendous amounts of money. Like there's no other way, right? And for other camaraderies, other athletes that you have, are they all kind of in the creator world, or are they doing grinding and trying to figure it out while they're pursuing their sport?
No, I'd say for most of the beach handball space now, it's like they've got careers in addition to beach
Mm-hmm.
handball. It's
Mm-hmm.
a primarily amateur discipline. Not to say that there aren't professional opportunities, but it's not like NBA, NFL
Yep.
money, right?
Yeah.
As you mentioned, and so you kind of have to get creative with how you pursue it. Uh, like I said, for myself, it's just the perfect storm to mesh content creating, the journey, with being on the journey.
Yeah.
And so for me to double dip, because when I'm training, I'm also accruing content, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Exactly.
as
Yep.
opposed to like bartending or doing something completely dissimilar, where it's like I've got to do this, and then I've got to manage like
Mm.
where do I find the sleep. I'm fortunate that um, I was able to integrate those two things, and they feed off of each other. And like I said, like literally when I'm training and recording training, like I'm reviewing training as an athlete and figuring out what I need to
Yep.
get better. But I also have content to be able to post because my content
Yep.
is based on my journey as an international athlete.
Yep.
Um,
And the ninja, all the crazy things that they do. I was just looking at your like videos on YouTube and videos on your. I'm like, this dude, like that ninja is like the perfect way to describe like just the way you perform. I'm like, this dude, like it's sick. You're even like 360s and like chucking the ball with both hands. Like it's so sick. I was like, holy cow, this dude's on a whole nother level. So how do you balance that? I know it's you kind of said it integrates a little bit, but how do you balance that? Because I think a lot of people that I notice in beach volleyball, they're either more into their sport or more into the creator side. Like, how do you kind of integrate that? Because I feel like that's a hard balance.
for sure. I think one advantage I may have had over a lot of people that kind of get to the top and realize that they've also had to be a creator is I had prior experience in the sports commercial space. As a
Mm,
teenager, I did some sports modeling work in the Portland area before I left for USA Team Handball, before I left for the
got
indoor
it.
national team.
Yep.
And I'd worked on Nike, Adidas,
Wow.
commercials on
Mm-hmm.
screen. And just having those experiences, understanding what a pre-production process is like, understanding what a production process is like. Not that I was necessarily editing my own content, but just
Mm-hmm.
being around videographers, editors,
Mm-hmm.
photographers, being around different wardrobe staffs, and really seeing what a production in full looks
Mm-hmm.
like to create professional looking sports content, at least through the lens of being
Yeah.
the person on screen. I learned a lot about being off screen, and as I started this journey and I'm creating content, and I had made a YouTube account my senior year of high school. Um, I had a friend of mine who is an incredible content creator, Kent Snubby J, incredible musician, incredible artist, and he was viral before virality was a thing. Like back when the most popular video on YouTube was the Evolution to Dance by Justin Lapwai, and not
Yeah.
like the latest big music video. Kent performed at our high school talent show on these PVC pipes and
Mm-hmm.
went viral on YouTube back in 2008, like before viral was a thing. And so he was privy
Wow.
to content creating back when we were all on like PowerPoint, Microsoft PowerPoint, like before,
Mm.
so he was already ahead of things, and he actually edited my first video and taught me how to edit. I still remember going over to his house and looking at all the footage that he shot of me in my backyard. He used iMovie back then. I think he's graduated.
Yes.
But so one, having a friend who like was privy to content creating and then also doing some work in the sports commercial space, I was somewhat privy to what creating alongside growing as an athlete was going to be like beforehand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the particular eye that I have in how I go about creating my content is informed by my prior sports modeling experience as well. So it
That's
wasn't as
awesome.
much of a leap for me to figure out social media, because I know it's something that a
Mm-hmm.
lot of athletes, at least some of the beach athletes I've spoken to,
Yeah.
because I got to meet a number of the Team USA guys at the Anaheim Beach Games in Doha, Qatar, and
Oh, heck yeah.
I remember meeting Casey Patterson, and he
Yeah.
was
CPAT.
like, what's this like TikTok thing, right? Like, just kind of figuring out socials is something that a lot of athletes have to go through, particularly if you're not previously privy to it. But I was fortunate in
Mm-hmm.
my case to have prior experience with content creating and understanding what professional sports content looks like. And it wasn't much of a stretch for me. If anything, it was a creative outlet. As I'm going through this
Mm,
athlete,
yeah.
being able to creatively share the journey, it was in a way a mental health exercise. It was kind of a
Yeah.
way to kind of document the journey, journal in a way, and also have a creative outlet in figuring out how do I want to creatively tell the story that I'm trying to tell. If it's of my highlights in a competition, how do I sequence the highlights so that the highlights themselves tell a story? How do I think the audio accompaniment that I choose based on what music is popular at the time or what tells the
Mm,
story of the competition that happened? Because the idea behind Handball
mm-hmm.
Ninja is that it's the running diary of an international athlete.
Wow.
But the beautiful thing with it is if you scroll back and let's say you click on my 2016 Pan American Championship that I won. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think the song I picked was "Time of My Life" by Shockey, and it's a song in English, but it's got a Latin vibe to it. And it was my first international championship. It literally was the time of my life, and so
Yeah.
it's not just the highlights that you see. The whole content production tells the story of what I went through at that stage of my life, which is also a nice time sweep for me. When I can just scroll through my Instagram and I click this something from 2019. It's like, oh, I was working on this move at this time, or oh, this is the year Despacito became the most popular song in the world, right? Like there are all
That's
these
so
little
true.
Easter eggs.
Yeah.
There's all these Easter eggs in my content, whether it's what I put in the caption, what I put in the actual content, that is telling of the experience that happened at that time. So
Mm,
there's obviously the element of trying to make it viral at the present moment,
mm-hmm.
but it's ultimately grown as a photo and video diary for me in some
Mm,
ways. Because ultimately, if anything ever happens to me, like that's the gift I leave to the world. They say your journey is your gift,
yep.
and really just diving into that and wanting to leave the world with, hey, this is the journey that I've been on. This is where I played around the world. These are the people that I got to meet. This was
Mm,
what I did as an athlete. And if you understand handball, you can see the progression in my game,
mm,
my post over time as well, and the moves that I add to my bag over time, things that I wasn't necessarily doing in 2019, being able to do that in 2021. And it's like I said, it's been this perfect storm as you described it, of being able to share the journey, but also have a creative outlet in a way.
Mm.
So it's been beneficial for me. And one thing that I tell people, if you make your own highlights, right? It's one thing if you have, an editor and you have your highlights cut for you, but if you actually
Yep.
go through the process of editing your own highlights, you have to watch your own tape film.
Yep.
Like if you're gonna watch film anyways, and one of the things I
That's
remember
so
saying
true.
this. No, I remember saying this to another national team coach of a different team. I've never played for him, but he's someone that I got to know through handball.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned to him that my content creating is when I do my film study.
Mm.
And his mind was blown. He's like, I thought you were just this like narcissistic that. I was like, that's actually genius. Like, but
Wait
and
a
in my
second.
mind, I'm thinking, yeah, like if you're an elite athlete, you're gonna watch tape. If you see the fact that I'm doing my own content, you know that I'm at least watching tape. So the
Mm-hmm.
fact that I'm actually putting up my own highlights to me was an indication of my dedication to the game.
Yeah.
But some people just took it as like, oh man, this dude's all about himself. It's
Yeah.
like you can't, like, if I wasn't dedicated to this craft, if I'm not, I can't make an edit of my highlights unless I actually watch
You're
the game.
watching it. Yeah. You can't find that highlight. You won't find that highlight
I won't
30
find the
minutes into
highlight unless I actually watch the game. So
it. Yeah.
like, I'm watching this stuff over and over and over again because I have to watch a
Mm.
full game. I have to pick out the clips, like the highlights of whatever it is that's going to fit the post I'm going to make. And then out of all the highlights, I've got to figure out how to creatively sequence them in concert with an audio accompaniment that
Mm.
looks aesthetically pleasing. That whole process requires me to watch hours and hours and hours of film. So the film that I'm watching as a competitor is also film that I'm watching as a content creator. And so
Mm.
just looking for ways to really mesh those two things as much as possible is what's really
Mm-hmm.
allowed me to kind of subsist and make it work. Because I know for a lot of people, they seem as dissimilar things. In my particular case, it really was one and the same. Like Handball Ninja,
Yeah.
without the competitive side of trying to be a world class athlete, and Handball Ninja doesn't subsist without the creative side of being a content creator and being someone who's communicating with and connecting with people all over the world. It's all just part of one bigger holistic picture of who I am as a human being. So I never saw it as separate. I understand
Mm.
a lot of people, it really is two separate things. Like being a player and being a content creator, like they're two completely different skill sets for a lot of people. For me,
Mm-hmm.
it's all part of the same picture. And so it wasn't two separate things for me personally, but I know that's not
Mm-hmm.
everybody's particular situation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. That is so cool how you combine that. Because for me, my coaches for so long were like, Christian, you got to watch film. Film's the only way for data. You got to know what you're doing out there. Like, data don't lie. I'm like, you're right. You're right. But do I really want to sit down and watch like my 2 hour practice? Like, not really. Like, obviously not. But no, if I'm an athlete, I need to because I need to see where I'm lacking and where I need to improve and all the above. That's so cool that you were able to combine that. And man, what a message that is to athletes because so many athletes struggle with that. Like they see them as separate, they get caught up in both of them and they're not able to move forward and it's hard. And so that's so cool because man, if I were to go back, I would be using that same strategy that you're doing if I were portrayed that in that way. Cause that's really like that's so unique. And I feel like it makes so total sense. It's just simplifying it and combining the two things but I know as athletes, we are all about grinding. We're all about getting better. We're all about that. And like, it is so nice to have that time, like doing something else, whether it's watching film and making your highlights or like something to get your mind off of like the actual grind. And so that sounds like that was it for you. And like, what else is there for you as an athlete that gives you that time to, reset your brain and do these things that I feel like if you're just like grinding as an athlete all day, you're going to grind your gears and go crazy. Like it's so nice that you have that creative outlet there. And I'm sure you're a creative person in so many other areas. Like what other things help you, get that rather than being like, I'm working to be the best athlete I can be. How can I like relax and like not like go all in on that athlete grind?
Sure. And I think I've mentioned this in other interviews as well. my life really the past 8 years has been handball, sleeping, and dancing. Like that's
Yep.
been the bulk of it. But the dance was really my creative outlet, and I consciously chose it. One of the things that I said when I went out for Team USA when I was in Auburn, um, because I'm moving to a college town, I said, "Hey, like I've had my college experience. Like, I'm going to really try to make it as an athlete, but you do have to be human, as you've
Oh yeah.
alluded to. If you
Yeah.
just grind, you're just going to burn out." But I
Yep.
said, if I'm going to be social, like if I'm going to go out, because I don't drink or I don't smoke, my body always comes first. So I said,
Yep.
okay, how can I socialize in a way that is still constructive to my ultimate objective?
Mm.
And I found the solution to that through social dancing, through partner dancing.
Cool.
When I was in Auburn, it was swing dancing, and
Mm-hmm.
I would have like a national team practice like 5:30 to 7:30, and then there was Jan Dempsey Arts Center. I still remember the name of it, where on Wednesdays and Fridays, like the local community would come out and swing dance. And one amongst many things I like about it is you don't have to come with a partner. Like you literally
Mm.
just show up. Once you learn how to do it, it's basically you improvise with every partner, right? So you don't have to like
Yep.
learn or memorize anything. You just have to kind of learn how to do it. But you can show up, you can interact with people. It's a skill set that allows you to work on your coordination,
True.
your movement, your footwork, your movement planning. And I use the analogy that if I'm dancing with one partner in a room of people, it's analogous to if I'm in a one-on-one with a defender on a court of teammates. The only difference is I'm reading and reacting to a dance partner and trying to work in concert with their body language, as opposed to when I'm on a court, I'm reading and reacting to their body language and I'm trying to do the opposite.
Mm.
But I'm still
Mm-hmm.
training the same read and react. And
Yes.
over time, it's a good skill to have, particularly if I
Yes.
travel internationally. If I don't speak the primary language of wherever I'm playing, but I know that salsa dancing is essentially everywhere. I can go to a salsa dance. I don't have to say a word, and I can make
Mm-hmm.
friends in a different part of the world, which
Yep.
has been a really cool kind of side quest
Yeah.
experience throughout the career. But I would say off of the court, dance is probably my primary non-competitive, but still interact with other human beings and socialize constructively outlet for me throughout
Yeah.
my career. And I've tried to pick up different social dances over the past 8 years. One, it's just a good skill. Like it's a good cognitive, brain-growing skill
Mm-hmm.
to learn different dance moves and different combinations of moves so you don't bore your partner within a dance, and work on your footwork, your rhythm, your spatial intelligence, because particularly for like more
Yes.
high dances, like you've got to move a partner around, but also make sure they don't run into other people, right?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
for all these different cognitive skills that you're working on when you play a ball sport, there's another
Mm.
which you can also work on it, but you're interacting with people in a much more constructive way than competition. And so for me, that was the
Yeah.
perfect, like non-competitive, but I can still be active while socializing and learn skills that also transfer back to my competitive grind activity. So dancing,
Mm.
to answer your question, is
Yeah.
was
That's
that
so cool.
yeah.
Yeah, I've seen some of the capoeira stuff you've been doing lately and like the drum stuff you've been doing lately. Like that, I can't imagine how helpful that is for like you feel like a kid. One first and foremost, you probably feel like a kid, which is like the most beautiful, purest form of human beings, which is awesome because you're literally just there and you're just doing your thing. And I'm sure it's such a good workout and just even focusing on your breath. I'm sure it's like there's so many things going on like when you're dancing or doing anything like that. So and knowing that that is also improving your athletic life but also giving you that time to have that social time and get energy and like use that time wisely because yeah, we know time is how we use it, and so that's so cool how you use that in that way, and how you kind of said you don't smoke or drink or anything like that. I want to dive into that a little bit because that's super important for me. I've been sober since what when did I put it down? When I was 21. So it's been a really long time since I've drank. And for me as an athlete, that's always been the thing that I like. I'm not gonna put poison in my body. Like I'm an athlete. My body's a temple. I gotta take care of myself. And like has that always been your kind of mindset? Is like I don't do those things, or is it like you had an experience and you decided to go against it? I'm curious because in the athletic world, booze and smoking and all that drinking and all that is such a lifestyle there. It just is.
And it was definitely the prior as opposed to the latter. I've always been relatively self-preserving. Not to say that I always made the healthiest decisions, but I think maybe a combination of fear from my mother in ever getting caught or arrested. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but particularly when I started my international career, I said like I'm going to try to be the best me that I can be and to be the healthiest that I can be because that's what's going to allow me the best opportunity to succeed. I don't want to look back and say shoulda, woulda, coulda because I was drinking or I was smoking. And I think I know that I have somewhat of kind of an addictive or compulsive personality. And so I realized like, let me just not start. And
Mm.
started having, in retrospect, I'm really grateful that was kind of my mindset, just kind of going into my teens and being an adult. It was like, if I somehow like this thing, I know that it could be a problem. And so I just never started.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, just keeping my body as a temple. And over time, learning that it's more important for your mind. Not say that your body is
Mm.
important, but uh, for me as a playmaker in handball, everything I can do to make sure that my cognition is optimized is important, especially you get older because I'm 30 now.
Yep.
And when I look at the Tom Brady's and the Lionel Messi's, the LeBrons, those who aren't just elite athletes, but are elite athletes into their 30s, mid 30s, late 30s, into their 40s, they're all guys who are known for their brains within their game, and so always having that at the forefront of how I go about my craft. It's not even like, oh, I don't want to drink or smoke because I
Yeah.
feel like I'm a little bit slower. It's just like my game is predicated on how sharp of reads I can make and how smoothly everything is functioning. So it's even deeper than not just drinking or smoking. It's like every day you're making decisions, making cognizant decisions, so that come game day, it's not just I'm my fastest or I'm jumping my highest, but it's every decision is as lucid and as clear as possible because that's ultimately what's at the root of me being successful playing a ball sport is my cognition and making sure mentally I'm sharp. And there definitely are high functioning alcoholics and
Oh
guys who
yeah.
celebrate cigars. Like it's a whole thing. I was never a work hard, play hard kind of guy. I was very much a slow and steady, or I say fast and steady is going to win the race, but just making sure I never took a step back. That
Mm.
of was more of my thing. Yeah, and even if I'm not necessarily progressing or doing things at as fast as the speed as everybody else, just making sure I'm not moving back, making sure I'm not compromising myself, and over time, as long as I keep on doing the right thing, keep on engaging in constructive action, life will keep moving forward for me, and that's always been my mindset. And with that,
Oh, lost him. Ebiye. Dang. Well, AB is the man, and we've had such an awesome conversation. I'm gonna keep rolling. Hopefully, he's still here. We'll see. And we're back. Technical difficulties, no problem at all. We're here, we're patient. Good time to stay hydrated.
Sweet. See if I can get you back. Out of me. Yeah, sorry about that. A little technical difficulty on my end, but can you hear and see me?
Oh, good. Yeah, yep, absolutely.
Yeah,
A little blurred out, maybe a little bit closer. I think you're blurred a little bit.
A little blurred.
There you go. Yeah, now we see you. Yes, sir. Sweet. Perfect.
Yeah. But it brought me on where I may have been cut off on your end.
Yeah, you were just saying just the mindset of not taking any steps back and just how sharp and cognitively you need to perform, and really just like, yeah, there's no need for any of those extra things that everyone else does.
Sure. I mean, there's a million roads to Mecca, and I think it's one of the things that I've learned throughout my journey is guys get here through a number of different paths, and some guys work hard and play hard, and some guys are functional alcoholics, and they make it work. Yeah, but I know for myself and just my body and my mind and how I need to go about my craft, there's just a certain standard that I have for what goes into my body, and drinking and smoking doesn't necessarily fit that bill.
For sure. No, that's exactly right. I love how you portrayed that. That's so smart. All the athletes in like college and different things like that need to hear that, because so many athletes think they just got to be like everybody else and keep like, it's just like, hey, come join us. And everybody just joins, and they just don't even think about the repercussions, thinking about, yeah, if you are saying no to those things, you are becoming your best self, and you are like making the proper choice. And so with that, you talking about mindset and being sharp and cognitively, like, I'm so curious because I'm really intrigued by mindset and things like that. Like what over your time as being an athlete, like how has your mindset routines and taking care of your brain and taking care of all the things for our vehicle as being an athlete, like our mind, body, really, and brain, like how do you take care of it, and like what routines have you set, and like what things have you learned, and like all that, because all that stuff really intrigues me.
Oh, where do I start?
Yeah, right. I know that's the best question.
That in itself is the whole podcast episode.
Yeah, right. This is gonna be 3 hours just from mindset.
Really?
We'll have to reschedule for another round.
No, but seriously. And where do I start? It's one of the things you mentioned is I do throw with both hands, and cultivating ambidexterity was something that was important to me mentally, but there's also a very practical reason for pursuing it in the sport of handball. Generally, in handball, you put righties on the left side of the court and lefties on the right side of the court. Because when you take a shot, the closer your hand is to the center of the court, the more space you have to the side of the goalkeepers when you shoot.
That makes
So
sense.
it's difficult from an angle standpoint to be a righty on the left side of the court, a righty on the right side of the court, or lefty on the left side of the court, because your arm is further away from the center, and you thus have less angle. Considering that there's, depending on the source, 7 to 12 times as many righties as there are lefties in the world. When I got into handball at 15, I had the thought that there's probably 7 to 12 times less competition for being a right wing versus being a left wing. Right? So, especially in this sport, like it's definitely worth it to cultivate my left hand. And it was something that I initially was interested in as a basketball player. Yeah, I had this thought when I was 15. Like, imagine if you put James Harden and Steph Curry together, and you could step back, but you could step back to either side and use either hand. And how much of an advantage that would be if you had that ability cultivated. And so something that I was working on, and my whole ambidexterity journey is a podcast episode in and of itself.
Yeah, I bet.
I've talked about on other podcasts, and I can send you a link to I gave a keynote presentation in 2019 on ambidexterity in handball. And I talked about my whole ambidexterity journey within the sport of handball, and then getting to the discipline of beach handball, and a lot
Wow.
of common questions and how I went about it. But that's definitely a big part of the mental cognition puzzle in my life,
Mm-hmm.
is consciously cultivating ambidexterity, and the number of mind and body benefits that are
Mm-hmm.
with that. I'll say a recent one, and I mentioned growing up in Portland, Oregon, but I was definitely a city boy.
Yeah.
I lived in Portland, and I gained much more of an appreciation for nature once I left.
Yeah,
Uh,
interesting.
but funnily enough, one of my, not New Year's resolutions in the sense of January 1st, but New Year's resolution as in I just turned 30 and going into a new decade of my life, is
Yeah.
maintaining a garden.
Mm,
And that's
beautiful.
been one of the greatest mental health exercises. It seems silly. It seems very like hippie,
Yeah.
uh, hipster, but it literally has been one of the best mental health exercises, one of the best wellness exercises that I've done throughout my career, is just consciously attending your garden and taking care of it and watching it grow. Uh, just as I leave my house every morning, taking care of it, go on to my day, and it's really helped me it helps me put life into perspective. Just
Mm,
witnessing that journey. And I don't have any kids.
yep.
And people talk about, and I know you just had your newborn, and people talk about how that affects their life and just changes their perspective on life. I feel like my little planter garden in my crib
Absolutely.
is kind of like my little baby, and it's just giving me perspective on life, and what's important, and understanding patience, and understanding how to trust and follow a process over time and consistently do the right thing with the bigger picture in mind. There's really a spectrum of activities and little tidbits that I've picked up throughout my career, as it pertains to mental health, recovery. But man, I could give you a whole podcast episode just on just
I
one thing.
love that. I
Um,
love that. The
it's tough to sum up.
ambidexter what?
I say it's tough to sum up, but you go.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. The ambidexterity stuff like really intrigues me because me growing up, I was the same thing. I was like, I played baseball. Baseball was my thing growing up, big thing. And I was like, what if I could throw left-handed too? What if I could do that? Like, I started with batting right and left-handed because I was like, I'm gonna at least start there. That's easy enough. And then I remember I was just like trying to figure out how to throw with my left hand for so long. And I ended up giving up on it. I kept going with my right. And then I found volleyball. And then at that point, I was like, oh, my shoulder hurts on my right. Maybe I should try left hand. And I started getting to the left hand and kind of worked that a little bit. So and for me, like I use that as a tool in every area of life. Like when I'm eating, I'll go ambidextrous. When I'm, anything I'm doing, if I'm shoveling, if I'm brushing my teeth or whatever, I try to use both hands. That's just something that I've incorporated in my life. So I'm not sure all the benefits. Like with your presentation, I'm gonna have to watch that because I'm gonna be like, oh, these are why I do it. I just do it because I feel good about just like having both sides of my body moving. I don't know. That's all that makes sense to me. And I've seen it. And I've had some people coach me in some ways and say, oh, brush your teeth with your opposite hand and it impacts your neural pathways in this way or this and that. And I'm just like, cool. Like I'm just gonna try to do both hands for like everything I do, like carrying my kid, like everything. Like I'm just always looking for that. So that's really, really intriguing to me. One, and then two, the garden stuff, man, that is so cool. Because like I've that's been a dream of mine to have a garden for I don't know how long, probably for the last like 5 to 10 years. I have a buddy, one of my main coaches and mentors that helped me with beach volleyball. He lives in Washington in the middle of nowhere and he has like an acre and a half. And man, I remember going there for like training camps and we would just like, all right, we're going to the grocery store and we'd walk outside and we'd like prune and like grab all and do all the like the work and grab our food and make it. We're just like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like we don't understand the work that goes into this, but we're getting the fruits of the benefits. Like, but like the way he
Literally.
portrayed it, he's just like, dude, like this is so, like the gardening is such a teaching tool for life. Like exactly like you said, like it literally is like sowing and reaping. And sometimes you're going to have to prune stuff and sometimes you're not. And you don't know if it's going to come out and you don't know if it's good, if it's annoyed next to the mushrooms and the strawberries. Like you just like, it's just like, what the heck? Like these things have minds of their own. So that is so cool in LA to actually like get a place to actually have a garden. Like that is so cool. So take me into that a little bit. Like how new are you to it? And like the little, like the couple principles. I know you could go in for a while with that you've learned and like how it's helped you in sport and life and all the above. Cause that's awesome.
Funny. So I got my current place, as I mentioned, May 1st, 2018. And
Yep.
it wasn't until the second portion of last year, like after I
Okay.
turned 30,
Mm-hmm.
I I remember when I got my place, and it's not a big garden. It's like not
Yeah.
anywhere near an acre. It's just a little like
Still
condo
something
porch
awesome.
thing to
Yeah.
a deal, right?
Yeah.
And for 5 years, I would literally just like let the weeds grow, and then once they got too bad, I'd have an exterminator to come in and just pull them out. But it'd just be dirt, right? It'd be
Mm,
dirt until it became weeds, and then once it got like too ugly for me to look at, I would have somebody come in and just remove the weeds, and I just repeat that for 5 years. And once I turned 30, I said, "It's a new decade. Like, let me do the adult thing and actually take care of this garden." And I guess in my mind, I thought it was just like a lot of unnecessary work that I didn't want to do.
mm-hmm.
I got to a stage in my life where I saw the benefit of doing it, and just being able to walk outside of my house and just see something fresh. Like it's such a mental health.
Mm,
It seems like such a small and silly thing. They say simplicity over sophistication. It really is. It's all the simple things that you don't think would be super cool, like being able to, you know, pluck your own fruit from like your own acre. Like that as a kid, just like, okay, whatever. But as you get older, you start to appreciate the beauty in such simple things that go such a long way. And
mm.
when I turned 30 last June, I said, "Hey, I'm in my 30s now. Let me see if I can like actually take care of this garden, like this little planter garden. It's not much space. It's like it's a strip that's smaller than the room that I'm in. But let me just see if I can keep something fresh alive like that. Like that was the
Yeah.
goal.
Keep them
Uh,
alive. Yeah, that's the first goal.
yeah, let me just keep something alive. Like it's not like I'm trying to like grow X number of wild, exotic, whatever.
Yeah.
Like keep something fresh alive,
Yeah.
and it really is a microcosm for life.
Mm,
Yeah, everything you learn through the cultivation, the care, the pruning process, watering but not overwatering, like understanding the balance and the formula and the recipe and the timing to optimizing things in life. You get to work on through this little deal, and then you get this gift of something that gives you fresh air. And that's again, I mentioned simplicity is ultimate sophistication. uh, for something that you do as often as breathing, just being able to do that well and having fresh quality air that's aided by something that you grow is it's like the cyclical wealth and health boosting thing that you don't think would have much of a positive or tangible effect on your life, but it is something that has really enriched my life, just taking care of my little planter garden and really feeling reward and fulfillment, uh, just from managing it and seeing something green grow and continue to grow. Like I said, it seems like such a small thing, especially for an athlete that's played abroad and has accomplished a fair bit, that I turned 30 and one of my proudest accomplishments is just keeping a little planter garden alive. But life happens and perspective changes. The things that you find to be valuable tend to be simpler, but you definitely appreciate what really matters in life. And I say,
amen.
yeah, just taking care of a little planter garden has been one of the best mental health exercises for me in this stage of my life.
That's so cool. Such a blessing. Yeah. To wake up to that thing and be like, I'm taking care of you. You are flourishing because what I'm helping you with. And I get to see you every day. You're crushing it. So have you been able to have like a harvest, like a tomato or anything like that you've gathered from it yet?
Not yet. Like I said,
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
a process. I've just
Yeah.
got a bunch of clean growing green leaves, but not
Yeah.
harvesting any particular fruits yet. But hopefully over
Okay.
time. Like
Gotcha.
that's
Good for
a
you,
long
man.
term. Right now, I just want to keep something alive, and
Yeah.
I'm succeeding with that. So it feels like success on my end. But I guess maybe a question for you. I know, like I'm the person you're interviewing, but
Yeah.
because I know when we met in 2016, we were both in South Bay, kind of pursuing things, and then life's changed a little bit for you since you've had your firstborn. How has having your little one changed your perspective on life?
That's a great question. I think, man, there's so many things, but I think I'm fine. Like I feel like for me as a man, like I've been searching for a purpose that is greater than myself, and that would put me in this place of learning to become selfless and like doing things not for myself. I'd say that is tremendously been the biggest lesson for me. Learning to live every day for a purpose that is not my selfish desires anymore, and it's like for her and for her, like her growing and her nurturing, and the things that I do every day are like not for me anymore, and like to fully like surrender to that and to know that like I am becoming my most selfless self. Because I think for me, I feel like my whole life has been like me, like, and it's just, I think just as humans, we just have this innate selfish nature. That's just like, it's all about me. And I think for me, it's just changed the whole way that I live my life, because I feel like it's all about everyone else. It's not about me anymore. Obviously, it's about my family first, but I think that even includes the rest of my life. Like, I literally feel like my life doesn't matter anymore. And it sounds like depressing, but it's in the most beautiful way possible, because it's like you're doing these things not for yourself anymore. And you still do, the same things. I'm doing a lot of the same things I did before, but it's a different reason and more of a purpose. And it's, yeah. So I'd say that is like the one thing that I've just clung to, and I feel like comes to mind immediately when you ask that question, because that's a great question.
Yeah. Purpose. No, I mean purpose or dharma is essentially important to all of us, all of our lives, and I'm glad your little girl has been able to provide that to you.
Yeah, it's wild. Yeah, it's wild. Yeah, yeah, I don't know. It's just completely different than the life I was living before, and it's the most beautiful thing ever. But I love that. That's an awesome question, and I'm sure you're gathering a lot of that though in minuscule ways, like the garden, like that gives, each and every day you're going up, you're like, these things are relying on me. And that's the same thing with my kid. It's like, this kid's relying on me. Like, if I don't take care of it, then like, it's like not going to flourish, and it's not going to whatever. And it's like, it's funny because that's, it's a living thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just another incentive to show up as your best self, right?
Yes, I like that. Yeah. Another incentive to, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Cause yeah, I think for a lot of us, I mean, it's hard to show up in our best self every day for ourselves, like, but for us to have these other other, I mean, intrinsically, if you really have like, that is awesome. And it takes a lot, I think, a lot of work to like find that intrinsically, but I think a lot of us tend to need to find it some sort of way extrinsically, even though we don't want it like that to be the focus. But
No, I agree, and I know for at least myself, because I don't have a spouse or kids or pets. That process of finding something bigger than yourself when you can be selfish.
mm,
I know for some people it can be difficult, but at least saying for myself, I felt like when I got into this, yeah, I felt like my journey was in sync with the journey of beach sports growing, with the journey of a discipline of handball growing. Uh,
mm,
Maybe that naturally um, kept my focus on something beyond, just fortune or fame, because it felt
yeah,
like my journey was innately connected to these things that were bigger than me. Again,
mm,
just trying to climb up the Olympic ladder, and um, the whole beach sport culture that's trying to become more prevalent across the globe, and the beauty of connecting sport with nature. And there were a number of these concepts that all seemed to be towards a nobler purpose for me.
Mm,
So it wasn't necessarily me trying to innately figure out how to find something bigger than myself.
mm,
I was fortunate that what I got into, there was this bigger picture. Can
yes.
beach handball climb up the Olympic ladder? With the Anarch World Beach Games, can Anarch World Beach Games really take its place as the Beach Olympics in the 4-year Olympic cycle of Olympic family events, where you have a Summer Olympic Games, then you have a World Games, then you have a Winter Olympic Games, and then there's that fourth year that's missing. And this new Anarch World Beach Games, unfortunately, the most recent one in Bali last August got canceled, but
Got it.
um, but this idea of like getting a beach Olympics alongside the Summer and Winter Olympics in the World Games, and being a part of the growth of that. Right, I
Yes.
was fortunate to be able to have my journey throughout my 20s be in concert with things that I thought were positive to promote growing and being
Mm,
able to be in a position where I could contribute to the growth of those things.
yes.
To get into beach handball in 2015, 2016, when it made its debut in the Youth Summer Olympic Games in 2018, and then trying to climb its way up the Summer Games ladder. It'll be a non-medal contending sport this summer, but it will be in Paris nonetheless, which is huge for the sport. And I just felt like the time in which I got into the game, it's like, hey, like it's cool to be a part of an emerging Olympic game, whether we get there or
Yes.
not. It's like that in of itself was something bigger than what I accomplished on the court, right? And then
Mm,
so there's the sport of handball trying to grow across the globe, and handball in the United States trying to grow that I'm a part of. I'm on the board of directors for USA Team Handball. Um,
awesome.
but then there's also the beach sport culture that is trying to grow around the world. And I've been fortunate to interact with beach volleyball players like yourself, but also some
Mm,
beach tennis players, beach soccer players, and the beach sports as a whole, with most of them outside of beach volleyball not being on the Olympic program, but having these popular global niches around the world. They're really cool communities.
yes.
You get to interact with athletes from different beach sports. It's a lot of unique stories related to disciplines, but there are a lot of crossovers. When you
So
play
true.
sport on the sand, we go through a lot of similar things as I've learned. And most beach sports tend to be less than the most popular version, or there's another version of the same sport that's a little bit more popular or a little bit more mainstream.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so having athletes cross over between surfaces and learning those dynamics and how they're different between different sports, because obviously 6v6 indoor volleyball is different than 2v2 beach volleyball.
Hmm.
11 on 11 field soccer is different than 5-on-5 beach soccer, right?
Yeah.
And it's been cool getting to be a beach sport ambassador and learn about different beach sports and
Mm,
dynamic of those games relative to the same sport played on a firmer surface, while also
yes.
to learn about different dynamics within the sport of handball and how
Yep.
handball is played around the world across different disciplines. And I think those two things, wanting to see the sport of handball grow globally, particularly within the U.S., and then wanting to see beach sports grow globally.
Mm,
I think
mm,
those two things have really driven me, particularly the latter portion of my 20s, and
yeah.
fortunate enough to be in a position where I can really delve into both of those and see both of those grow. And I think that is really the thing that was bigger than me, that
Mm,
going beyond myself, was knowing that I was trying to make a sport more popular within
yep.
my country and abroad, and also just push general beach sport culture um, abroad and globally, and connect with people and show them the beauty of uh, being able to play games out in the elements and out on the sand. And something that really just spoke to me and just spoke to my heart, and that's really been something that's driven me throughout my 20s.
That's awesome. Yeah, because I think most of us, we need to have something that drives us other than obviously becoming our best self and inspiring others. Because what you're doing is inspiring so many people along the world, around the world, which is so incredible. And like you said, to be an ambassador, not only for your sport, beach handball, that has changed your life, but also sand sports in general. And to be like, to have that vision and to be a part of that journey, like, I can't even imagine what that's like because like if I were to think like if I were around when beach volleyball was like kind of just getting started before it kind of blew up, like what that journey would be like. Oh my gosh, like I can't eat like I'm getting goosebumps. I can't even imagine. Like so for you, like those things that drive you, like what do you think are the main drivers from those things that you get and like how 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 do those drivers just like I don't know, I feel like it's just those things like help us become our best self and like how do those things kind of help you become your best self? That's I guess what I'm getting to. I love that.
Uh, I think it. I think having something that drives you polarizes your decision making. It makes it
Mm,
easier to not do the things that you shouldn't,
mm-hmm.
because you always have a bigger picture in mind. Um,
Yep.
yeah, if you say like, "Hey, like, yeah, I'm trying to be an Olympian, or I'm trying to do something that's lofty,"
Yep.
um, if that's at the forefront of your mind, all the things that aren't necessarily conducive to that, it's easier for those things to fall by the wayside, or for you to not necessarily lull or gravitate towards doing those things. Because if those things come across your consciousness, the bigger picture, the bigger vision that you're driven by also comes across. And so,
Mm,
do I really want to go out on this night with this group, or do I really want to have this smoke, or do I really want to eat that thing? If you don't necessarily have something bigger compelling you within a given moment, it's like, well, why not? Right? Like it's just another
mm-hmm.
day. Like this is just one day, why not do something that's less than optimal? But when you've got that North Star, it really
Mm,
polarizes the decisions you make in your life around, is this really constructive towards me moving towards something that I'm still very far away from? Right. When you're really far away from something, you're not really in a position to take days off, or to take shortcuts. It's like, yeah, I've got a lot of steps to still take. I can't be taking steps
yep.
backward, knowing how
Yep.
much I still need to go. Right.
Yep.
Um, if you feel like you've already made, or you've reached a destination, or you're not necessarily striving for something, then yeah, being a nerd, or taking steps back, it's not going to seem like a big deal, particularly in the moment. Right. But knowing that there's something bigger that
Mm,
is compelling you to be a better you, and it's something that you can look at every single day, um, it just makes it easier to do the right thing. And I'd say that's probably the biggest benefit to having a dharma, or a north star, or a big lofty goal,
yeah.
is all of your decisions in life. It's like, hey, I can't even afford to make mistakes. Not even because somebody else is holding me to it. It's like, if I know that to reach this thing, I've got to do this, and this, all right. From the moment you wake up, it's like, okay, like what is a constructive action? Doing
Yep.
it. Next thing you go throughout your day, doing it. And then over time, you establish habits that are in line with the frequency of what you're trying to become. And it gets easier. Like whatever you repeatedly do does get easier. But then over time, your life just becomes that level, or that thing that you've repeatedly operated at. And the things that don't necessarily fit into that picture naturally fall off. And in your life just becomes, I'm going to repeatedly do things at the level that I'm setting out at. And to have, like I said, having a dharma, or a north star, or a lofty goal, or a dream, or a vision for what you want your life to become, and doing everything around this is constructive towards that, and not doing anything that's destructive towards that. Um,
Mm,
Having something that really makes decisions in your life easy. I mentioned earlier, simplicity is ultimate sophistication. And I've really come to learn that excellence is simple. Simple is not
yeah.
necessarily easy, right? It's really simple to tell people don't drink. It's not necessarily easy, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
yeah. Um, but moderation is complex, right? If it's like, I want to have 2.3 glasses of wine and 3.7 cookies and stay within my caloric intake. You have to do a lot of mental math to live
For
a
sure.
positive life, right? But the simple thing is like, I'm not going to cheat. Whatever I would consider a cheat day, I'm just not going to cheat. It's not to say that like I relax or I don't have wellness activities like dancing that allow me to relax and unwind and connect. But if something I would consider cheating, I'm just not going to do it.
Mm.
That's the simplest way to live life. I'm not doing mental math. I'm not making any sort of calculation for how much I can dip into this thing that I really don't need to be doing at all, but doing it moderately enough that I get the experience of cheating, but not so much that it's taking me from my goals. Like I said, that takes a lot of unnecessary
Oh
mental
yeah.
work. It's really simple when you establish that this is constructive, this is destructive. I will do constructive things, I'll never do destructive things. And I think having a lofty goal makes that a lot clearer for you. Because if
Mm.
your lofty goal is, I'm trying to be an Olympic athlete, as you go through the journey of being an athlete, you realize things that don't allow you to perform well pretty quickly. And you realize things that are more constructive towards you showing up your best at game day. And then that is a process. There is a discernment process as you're growing up and going through life to figure out, how constructive is a given person, place, thing, convention, modality for me. But
Yeah.
once you understand that, hey, this is something that's constructive for me as a human being, even if it's initially uncomfortable, like going into an ice bath, versus this is something that's destructive for me, even if it makes me feel good for a short amount of time, but ultimately is going to be compromising to my body, like cocaine or something like that. Once you understand what's constructive, what's destructive, when you have a lofty goal, it's a lot easier to repeatedly do constructive things and not do destructive things. When you don't necessarily have that North Star, it's like, well, like, let me, relax, take a day off, because what's the point? Right. And
Mm-hmm.
this, yeah, I'd say really just having something lofty makes it easier for you to, one, identify what is constructive and destructive, and then two, consistently make decisions to do the things that are constructive and not do the things that are destructive.
I love that. That's so well portrayed. And even Jordan Peterson talks about that a lot. I've been hearing him. He's like, if you don't have a vision, and even the Bible says it, if you don't have a vision, the people perish. And so many people, like, you'll get just wrecked by the waves. If you don't know where you're going to go, you're going to get crushed by the waves. Like, and I tell my clients that I work with in athletics, I'm like, guys, you're here and you want to be here. Like, you got to have that vision. You got to see it every day and know it, because then that gap is going to fill itself. Because like you said, you're going to know what to throw out, and you're going to know what to make habits and be who we want to be by incorporating those habits to get us where we want to go. But I think the thing that people get so caught up in is they don't sit down to create that goal or that vision, or that goal or vision is like, they just say it and like, that's it. And they don't look at it consistently. It's not like something that truly means something to them, because until it does truly mean something to them, like you said, they're not going to get rid of those bad habits that are going to keep them from it. And they're not going to implement those things that are going to actually get them much closer to that goal. And so with that being said, you're a super wise dude, brother, like super wise. I'm really inspired by just the way you think and the way you articulate yourself. Like, who are some people that are like mentors to you? Who are some people that you've gathered a lot of things that you've learned from? I know you've had incredible coaches, and I'm sure there's probably a lot of people mentors behind the scenes and things like that, and books you've read and studied and things like that. But like take me into that a little bit.
Oh man, where do I start? I feel
Yeah,
like,
right. I know everything I ask is like, where do I start? Like, dang it, dude, I'm sorry. I
yeah,
didn't
like
even
how far
know.
down the job will we want to go? I mean, as you mentioned, I've been fortunate to have a number of great teachers and coaches, both within the sport of handball and outside the sport of handball. I mentioned my ambidexterity journey, and I'd be remiss not to acknowledge my ambidexterity mentor, Michael Lavery, who's the author of the book Whole Brain Power. He was one who really opened the door and really showed me the light of what was possible as an athlete, and beyond just being ambidextrous, how far you really could take cognitive development as an athlete. Because I initially got turned on to him because he was working with a switch pitcher in baseball. But beyond just the ambidexterity, he turned me onto memory training and penmanship training and a number of different activities that aren't necessarily mainstream or things that have fallen off within our education system, but have immense value, much more than what you can see on the surface or what meets the eye, and things that are worth investing in. And again, I'd be remiss not to acknowledge the impact that Michael's had on my life and my career. Another guy that I'll throw into a similar hat is Capella Clark, the founder of Free Flow DAO. And I don't know if you've seen on my Instagram some videos of me training on treadmills and doing different juggling and movement drills. And yeah, that goes back to Capel, who back when I'm thinking mid 2000s, so maybe middle school, probably middle school age for me. If you know Reggie Bush, the running back, when he was at US, he was one of the most electrifying players in all the sports. And I found a video on YouTube of him working with Capel, and he was doing a backflip on a treadmill platform and just see different movement exercises. And one, I'm super impressed because there's Reggie Bush, but then seeing the guy that he was working with and going to his website and then studying the philosophy of it, it was unlike anything that I'd ever seen or experienced. But it was on the wavelength of where I intuitively saw training and development and playing a ball sport. And Free Flow DAO translates to living life on the path upon which freedom flows, which I thought was such a beautiful way to describe an athletic system. And I was fortunate enough, once I graduated high school, to be able to train a student for the first time in Santa Monica, California, when I was 17 years old, and was able to forge a friendship with Capel throughout my international career, even as I established myself abroad. Every once in a while that I'm around in the area, I'd connect with him, and there's so many pearls of wisdom that he shared with me that I've since in turn shared with my teammates. I always will find myself hearing his voice with something that he said to me training. When I'm at a practice or I'm in a game, and beyond what he taught me as an athlete, coordinating breathing with movement, making movement efficient. One of his sayings, his famous sayings, is "No sound is the best sound." When you're moving, the louder you are, the less efficient your movement is, and striving to be like a ninja and be able to traverse terrain without any unnecessary movement or inefficient movement that leads a thud or anywhere. Those, amongst many other things I learned from Capel, I definitely put him alongside Mike as far as athletic mentors who really shaped the way I've approached sport and really shaped the way that I've gone about life. And within the handball space, I've been fortunate to play for national team coaches who've developed me as a player and who've taught me a lot, and club coaches in 5 different continents that I've learned from. I've had a number of great teammates. I've played with over 100 different guys at this point, and you learn something playing alongside every person of every position and age and size, and now being 30 and going into year 11 internationally and making the transition from being the young guy amongst veterans to being a veteran. And the team I played on this last European Beach Tour Championship, I was the oldest teammate for the first time, which is still wild to me.
Different role. Yeah, that's wild.
I've been in this long enough to have been on teams where I was the youngest guy. When I won my first club championship, it was in China in 2018. I was the youngest guy on that squad at 25. And the French club I played with, the most recent European Beach Tour Championship, I turned 30 during the competition, and it's a younger squad, so I was the oldest guy on it. And I'd say that's it's interesting to be the vet. But I've learned from my older teammates. I've learned from my younger teammates. But there's so many people that I've learned from, people I've been inspired by, people I haven't met, but I've learned from their teachings or learned from their example. Uh,
Absolutely.
there's I mentioned that Avatar is my all-time favorite anime, and there's a character Iroh who has this saying that if you learn through one medium or through one source of knowledge, it becomes rigid and stale. And learning from other nations or learning elements from other fields outside of your main one will help you become more whole. And that's something that I've tried to keep in mind throughout my career. And I try to draw inspiration not just from other handball players, but from athletes across different sports and different disciplines who found success. Basketball is my first love, and a big Steph Curry, James Harden, LeBron James fan, and seeing elements of their game and seeing what I can incorporate from their games into my handball game. I watch a lot of soccer because soccer is essentially handball with your feet,
Yeah.
and um, looking at guys like Lionel Messi, as I mentioned, and Kylian Mbappe, and just trying to study athletes from different sports who've had success in different sports, to find attributes that I can add to my sport that aren't conventional to my sport. And I think that allows me to be a little bit more of a spontaneous player and a little bit less predictable and a little bit less rigid if the elements I can incorporate into my game are elements that aren't quite as straightforward within the sport. They're elements that come from other fields. It keeps my game a little bit fresher. It makes me a little bit less predictable and a little bit more difficult to scout for as a player if I can keep on learning from different fields. And I learned from parkour. I mentioned you mentioned capoeira, and it's something I got
Yeah.
into. One of my national teammates, but there's so much I've learned through studying capoeira, particularly playing a team sport in which there's so much rotation that we do because like we'll spin into a throw, right? Uh,
Mm.
I've learned a lot through capoeira that I've been able to translate into my beach handball game. I learned from hockey and gridiron football, and when I watch guys like Pat Mahomes and Matthew Stafford make no look passes or make passes from different arm slots, like those are things that I try to emulate on the handball court as well. Being able to throw from different arm slots and different release points. Whether it's the footwork of a defensive back, it's how a pivot in soccer or number six in soccer navigates the field or alleviates a press. There are all these elements from all these different sports that handball can relate to. And it's just a continual process of trying to seek out new mentors and new sources of inspiration that can just give me a tool that I can add to my game. And so on top of the direct mentors and coaches that I've worked with, the indirect mentors that I haven't necessarily met, but have just been inspired by their example. The list really is endless. But I hope that my answer so far is satisfactory enough to move on to another question.
Oh, dude. Yeah, absolutely, man. That really inspires me. Like you said, just like not like taking things from you can gather something from anyone, and for you like going out there and seeking these, yeah, whether it's a direct mentor or not, but like you said, like these things that you would never think a professional sand handball player would be, or beach handball player would be like doing. You're adding all these things to your tool belt. Like I'm just me thinking now, I'm like, dang, I did jujitsu. I'm like, this dude you'd be amazing at jujitsu, and you'd love it because just the movement and the stuff that goes on in there, like you'd kill it. But just like all those little things, like that was kind of my mindset when I was really pursuing beach volleyball. I was like, oh, I'm gonna go hire this trainer, this vision trainer, this pitch trainer to help me with this vision exercises, and I'm gonna go to this person to teach me about my spacing my toes so I can get my toe space so I can grip the ground with my feet, and then and then what else? Go into a breathing trainer and go into like all these things that people would just be like, that's crazy. Why would you use that for the volleyball? I'm like, because like every tool that I add to my tool belt, I can gain one. If I can gain one thing and like invest in this, whatever it is, like I'm gonna get so much out of it for not only in my sport but to the rest of my life. Like I use these vision exercises to date because they help me not get headaches, and like they're amazing, and like all those like weird things that people would be like, I do animal flow. And they're like, what is that? And it's like, I'm literally like acting like an animal and saying animal movements on the floor. I'm being a monkey, a gorilla, I'm being a bear, I'm being like all these like out there training methods. And I love that you are all into that too, because that has been such a key part, I think, for me to just keep the sport fun and to
Yeah.
keep learning. Because I think for us as athletes, I think people get caught up when they stop learning and they're like, oh, I feel like I know it all. And like when you're in this place of like, I will be learning till the end of time, and you're like, give me that. I'm in for that. I'm down to walk backwards and look super weird and maybe do eyeball training while I'm walking backwards, and people will be super weirded out. Like, what is this guy on? But like, was that kind of easy for you to just dive into that, or was that like a hard kind of journey to go through?
No, I think at least going back to being a teenager, yeah, I've always tried to find advantages in less than conventional ways. And um, after I met you and at least saw you on social and saw that you're into a lot of similar things, like, oh, I really like this dude. Like, you kind of think similarly as far as just trying to find ways to get little advantages that may not necessarily be mainstream, but things that we feel can better us as athletes. And funny that you mentioned this idea of always learning. Early in my national team career, I came across through Ido Portal, who I think is a little more popular, but there's this guy by the name of Jetson Lapalai, and his methodology is never leave the playground. And
Mm.
his training is essentially based on just trying to find ways to make training and athleticism fun, whether it's like juggling while you're on a slack line or just trying to find novel ways to move and to take on challenges for things that you haven't done before. Like be safe, but this idea of always learning something new, this idea of never leaving the playground, never leaving that place of play and exploration, because that's where you're going to grow the most. If you're training, but you're having fun with it and you're exploring and you're challenging yourself to learn new things, there's more potential for growth in that than just being the dead horse of grinding your body over and over and over again. You do hit a point of diminishing returns with just doing the same exercises and trying to add another few pounds or another 2.5 pounds or another 3 pounds. Yeah, the value you get relative to the work you put in does hit a point of diminishing returns if you only do the same things and try to find ways that still relate back to your ultimate objective, but try to find novel ways to train uh, physically and mentally is extremely important. And trying to find different creative ways to integrate even prior things that I've learned, but maybe do them in a way that I haven't done them before. And I know you mentioned vision exercises while walking backwards. Like it's the concept of multitasking, similar to the concept of ambidexterity, is something that going back to being a preteen, trying to get more assistant basketball, like it's something that's been a cognizant part of my training. Is like I'll juggle while doing footwork exercises. I think one of my most recent reels is like me juggling 5 balls while doing like a Nikki Shuffle footwork series, right? And
Yeah.
but that type of training, like that for me, goes back to being 12 years old and a basketball point guard and figuring out ways to be a better playmaker and figure out how I can deal with or be aware of more of what's happening in my life so that I can make better decisions. If I can be aware of, 6 out of 8, 6 out of the other 9 players of the court, as opposed to just the guy guarding me, maybe 2 other players, I'm more likely to make an accurate decision. And I got into juggling around that time and just different types of multitasking because I knew that would make me a better floor general on the basketball court. And that's something that's been a part of my training kind of throughout my life, is just looking for different creative ways to train and to incorporate elements that I've mastered, but maybe integrate them in a way that I haven't done before, just so that I always keep things fresh and I always keep them fun. Because especially as I'm 30, you learn that when you do the same things over and over and over again, and training becomes a grind, then it literally starts to grind on you. If you can keep things novel and fresh enough that you're always learning something new, but you're progressing on things that you've already learned, I think that's a big part of being a pro athlete, is just figuring out that puzzle of repetition without repetition is the phrase that they always use. Is how do you grow upon or graduate upon the things that you've learned? If you think of something like mathematics, there's a progression with things where, like, you learn addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, you get into algebra. But if you get an algebraic equation, at the end of all of those equations, you still get to review the multiplication, divisions, addition, subtraction at the end, right? And figuring out that puzzle
Hmm.
where you're graduating in the sense of you're learning new things that don't necessarily result in you forgetting the things you've already learned, right? And how do you figure out that
Yes.
puzzle every year where you retain the things that you've learned, but you're learning new things? So there's a progression, but there's also novelty, and there's a progression that doesn't necessarily result in you completely forgetting or abandoning the things that you learned, because you want to build on them even as you learn new things, and just trying to figure out that puzzle of not repeating fifth grade over and over and over again, because that's mentally what you, but you don't want to push beyond that. But at the same time, like, not taking a day of math and then a day of Greek and then a day of science and then a day of English, but not ultimately progressing towards something, because you're always switching your training around and trying to find the
Hmm.
where, like I said, repetition without repetition. So, like, you're growing in something, but it's not so redundant that you hit a point of diminishing returns. And I think that's the big puzzle that athletes, young athletes coming up and going pro and trying to manage a career over time. Because even once you get to an elite level, you have to figure out how do you adapt your game enough so that you don't get scouted by opponents, and you adapt with the changes in the rules and the changes in evolution of defenses or whatever your opposition is. Uh, but you don't necessarily lose sight of what got you to where you're at. And, like, that's a puzzle I still have to figure out, or I'm figuring out, even as I go into my 11th year, is how do I train in a way where I get better at the game in a way that's going to allow me to be successful with how the game is going. Because some small rules have changed over time. Some tactics in a game change over time. The world always gets better. Kids always get younger and faster, and
Yep.
figuring out how to train in a way that allows you to retain and leverage the skills that you've learned, but grow on top of those skills so that you can still stay in the elite level. Because if you get stagnant, and you only do the things that have gotten you to a certain place, you do get to a point in life where what gets you from point A to point B doesn't necessarily get you from point B to point C. And I know
Exactly.
that's something that a lot of athletes struggle with, is, like, if they've done something and that's gotten them success, recognizing that that same thing doesn't necessarily get them continual success, and really figuring out that puzzle of how do I keep growing, how do I keep changing in a way that isn't so dissimilar that it's not connected to what I've already done, but is still novel enough that it's going to allow you to grow. And I think that puzzle is something that's extremely important as athletes.
Yeah, that's excellent. And just to know that you started that like when you're young, and to continue to reframe and refine your kind of process. Because yeah, I mean, over the career of us as athletes, we're like, our off seasons feel like they're the same, our in season feels like it's the same. It feels like we're just kind of going through, and if we're not, like you said, retaining what we're already training, but also stacking on top of it, like, it gets old, it's hard to get better, we're at a plateau. It's frustrating as an athlete. And so, like you said, I think younger athletes, like you said, they're getting faster and they're getting stronger and smarter and things like that. But I think the sustainable long term is, like, you gotta, like you said, keep it a playground, and you gotta, like, keep it fun, and keep it interactive, and keep it, I think play is something that, especially in beach volleyball, I see that people need to, because it's training can be so rigid at times. It's just like, is like how it is, and it is, and it's like nobody sets into that play and kind of gives almost like a more of, like, rather it being like in a cage, you're in a cage that you have to do it this way. It's like, just let it, like, almost make it as creative as possible. I'd say like when I get to that place, like I feel like is the most growth in like where I can truly like find that creativity and like that's so cool because I don't feel like I've ever like talked to another athlete that is all in on those same things. I mean, maybe in your world you've experienced that, but for me, it's like so many people that I see that train is just so rigid, and it's not you're not stacking on top of, or they're not stacking on top and being creative and finding that play. And I think that's so important for us as athletes too, because when we started the sport, we loved it so much, and like to continue that love, I think that's the only way to do it, or else it'll get old if you don't stack those things and try new things. And yeah, oh, that's really good.
As I mean, naturally, you get to a certain level, and performance and winning becomes a premium over just enjoying the sport, and that
Yes,
naturally lends to a change in how many people are going to go about the sport. But I will say that things are definitely better in the skill development space and understanding the importance of play and providing uh, play opportunities and play scenarios within training. I think it's much better now than it was when I was growing up. I don't know if you've read The Talent
agreed.
Code by Daniel Coyle.
Yes, that's a good one. Yes, absolutely.
And he talks about hard skills versus soft skills and how soft skills are cultivated through play environments as opposed to hard skills that are more likely to be cultivated through rigid repetition.
Hmm.
Depending on your sport and your field, how much of each right is going to vary. Even
For
within a
sure.
given sport, there are different roles and different positions within a sport. Right? Um, but I remember reading the talent code, and there's like a little supplemental to the book. It was like 52 tips for talent cultivation that I got right before I started my national team career, and that really shaped how I approach training
Mm,
because it acknowledges that yeah, there's a value in doing 1,000 reps of one thing.
for sure.
Right?
Yep.
There's definitely value in kind of the hard training. Like he literally breaks it off into hard training and soft training. Just kind of that rigid repetition of let's myelinate this skill has its value.
Hmm.
But also understanding that there are skills, particularly if you're in a read and react sport, right? If
Yep.
you're in a sport like darts, bowling, the need for you to have play, quote unquote, isn't quite to
That's
the
true.
same extent as
Hmm.
you're in a volleyball, a handball, basketball, soccer, these things where you're reading and reacting to other bodies and you need to be creative to be successful. Those are sports that lend themselves more to the cultivation of soft skills. Right?
Mm,
Um, I think there's more science, and at least in my experience, there are more coaches who understand the importance of having, in addition to very structured parts of their training, unstructured parts of their training where their players can be creative and they can figure things out and find solutions. And for me, it's something that's extremely important when I train is to have. It's not all of my training. Like there definitely is a part of my training that is a little bit more mechanical, a little more rigid. But it's important that I'm training my capacity to read and react. There are times where a training session for me will just be having two balls. I'm just juggling, and playing with different manipulations of a ball. Around my fingers, wrist, dribbling, and just uh, developing my overall capacity to creatively play with the ball because I know that's going to translate onto the court. If I need to make a play that is different than what I've made before, I know my body can figure it out because I've trained
hmm.
that. Um, so it's not 100% the end all be all just to go out and just play and then just have everything be
True.
unstructured.
Yeah.
I think it's something that is ideally integrated, and every sport is different, right? Some certain sports lend themselves more to creativity than others. And other
That's very
sports,
true.
if you're running a 60-meter dash, what you're doing isn't going to change. Like it's you explode the block, you stay explosive. You're not switching lanes. You're not reacting to anything other than the gun, right? So it's not
Yep.
as if you have to read the other people in the other lanes and like you're swerving through like it's like a parkour race or anything like that. You literally just you hear something and you explode in one direction, right? And so for those
Exactly.
types of sports where what you're doing doesn't change, the mindset's a little bit different as far as your approach to creativity. Like it still helps to do more than just that thing, right?
Totally.
Just train your body. But in our case where we play read and react ball sports, those are environments that lend themselves much more to play and it's the cultivation of soft skills, particularly over time. Because if you're very rigid as a player, if you're literally rigid, you may be extremely powerful, you may be extremely precise, but you also become extremely predictable.
Yep.
If I can literally see your muscles flex before you do something, right? Like you're telegraphing to me what it is that you're going to do.
For
And,
sure.
and so like I literally spend time training like, okay, how can I shoot at the same speed without telegraphing what shot it is that I want to take? Like,
Yep.
how can I perform an action as powerfully as possible with as little force or tension as possible so I can disguise what it is I want to do just a smidge longer, right? But like I said, every sport's different. Rules within a given sport are different. And so where an athlete puts their training focus as far as things they've already done versus new things, where they put their focus on hard skills versus soft skills. It's not a one size fits all. Some
For
players
sure.
are responsible for the burden of creation for their teams. Other players are on a roster to fit a very specific role, right? And so they don't necessarily have to be as creative as long as they specialize in XYZ thing, right? So it's not a one size fits all, but it's definitely something to be cognizant of as an athlete. Um, how much work you're putting into things you're already good at, how much work you're putting into new things, and really trying to figure out that puzzle, I think, is a big part of any young athlete's journey trying to become a leader world class in something is figuring out that puzzle and understanding that it's a changing puzzle year after year and just being adapt and flow with that to optimize your performance every season.
Absolutely. That's so true. And I want to be cognizant of time, but I really want to hear that because I know we only had 3 hours and we're cruising through it. It's wild. I feel like we could talk for hours, brother. I want to hear the story of the shirt, and then I want to hear where we can get one of those shirts.
Oh, okay. For sure. So this particular shirt, I want to say, when did I receive my first piece of fan art? Around the pandemic, um, 2020, particularly when people were at home and they weren't connected and life was almost entirely virtual. More fans and Instagram artists were doing drawings of me, whether it was a photo of an action of me in the game, whether it's just from scratch. And particularly in 2020, a bunch of incredible artists from all over the world had done illustrations of fan art of me. One of them was by Fabrizio Guaraldo out of Sao Paulo, Brazil. And he was a fan of a reality TV show, Ultimate Tag, that one of my national teammates happened to be a contestant on. Just one of those
No way.
3 degrees of like crazy separation. And he did a drawing of both my teammate Charlie and I, like together, like on a beach. And it was just this incredible photo. And I put that on a shirt when I went to my first competition post pandemic, which was in June of 2021 in Andalusia, Spain. And when I wasn't wearing team gear, I would just walk around. It was a shirt that said Handball Ninja. I probably yelled, but there's a shirt that said Handball Ninja, and it had Rizzo's design on it. And everyone's like, "Oh man, you got your own merch! Handball Ninja got your own merch, right?" And then the following year, um, Alejandro Harper, who's at Zelf Fantasy with the Z before the Y, so two Z's. He, as I mentioned, is this artist. I think I mentioned this to you before we went live, but he's this artist who he does caricatures of people as if they were in Avatar or they were in the Pokemon universe, or they're in like they're kind of cartoonized versions, and he does these commissions for people. And he did one of me back when I had longer hair, as if I was an airbender. And so it's like me holding an air ball as if it's a handball. And it was this drawing of me. I thought it was like the most incredible thing I'd ever witnessed. As I mentioned, Avatar is my all-time favorite anime,
Yeah.
and so when he did that of me, I put that on a shirt. And I mentioned Uncle Iroh earlier, but he has this quote that life happens where you are, whether you make it or not. And so I got the Avatar text and I put that quote on an original design that Alejandro did of me as an airbender, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward to this past June, I turned 30. And the morning of my 30th birthday, I had to play, had to compete, but I opened up Instagram and wasn't expecting it at all. But Alejandro, he sent me a message, and it was just with a link to a Google folder, and it had this design, like with a white background and with like different backgrounds, but this particular design, and it had the text, "The Legend of Handball Ninja." With it. And it was one of the best birthday presents I had ever received. I loved it so
Incredible.
much that when I got backstage side from Turkey, I got this design on I think 6 different colored shirts.
Yeah.
I was just like, this and this to me, when I think of the journey as a whole, um, going back to driving my Volvo down to Southern California in 2016 and not necessarily knowing what was going to happen in this beach journey. Uh, 7.5, 8 years later, to have someone that to this day I've never met in person,
Yeah.
uh, do this of me and everything that this represents. It's just a journey that I've been on all around the world. I feel like I had the opportunity to travel the world and try to master the different elements of my craft throughout my 20s. As I mentioned, playing beach handball across 6 continents, and this really encompasses the journey. The fact that somebody that I've never met in person, who discovered me through Instagram, did such an incredible drawing of me. It's got the nickname that the moniker that I essentially embraced in 2016, and now that the world knows me by on it. And it's just so well done, and the colors are vibrant, and it's got me. And I grew out my hair from when I started my career in 2013 up until June of 2022, and so this is the first drawing of me without my long hair, but a legend nonetheless. And this just encapsulates the entire journey that I was on. And if you want, I've got 3 different designs as far as different Handball Ninja shirts. So if you want any of them, they are made to order. You just have to message me at Handball Ninja on Instagram with a color preference and a design preference. And I ship to the United States, and international shipping is a little tricky right now, unless you're in a country in which I'm going to compete in soon, which the
That
summer
makes
is
sense. Hand delivery.
hand delivery. So if I can't hand deliver to you, I will ship within the U.S. This is made to order, and it's just message me at Handball Ninja on Instagram with your size and color preference and design preference, and I'll give you a quote.
Boom, dude. I love it. That's awesome. I'm stoked. I need to get myself one of those. Well, next time I'm in LA, I'm gonna grab one from you for sure.
For sure, you just got me in person.
Yeah, I know exactly. I'm like, well, this is a scam that we're not in person right now. So I'm planning a trip with my
Nice.
wife out there to the beach. So we'll have to hang and get some beach time, get a cold plunge in, maybe do some crazy wonky training and get myself one of those sick shirts.
100%. Would love that. Would love all of that.
Likewise, brother. Well, tell me, Abba, like, what does the next 5, 10 years look like for you before we jump off? I mean, that could be a whole episode in itself, but if you could say, your journey's been incredible, but what's ahead?
Um, well, within the next 2, 3 weeks, I find out if I compete in Paris or not. So, as I mentioned, beach handball will be in Paris as a non-medal contending sport, but so
Yeah.
essentially as an exhibition sport. But will be on the margins of the senior Summer Olympic Games for the first time, which is huge for the sport. And what they're going to do is they're going to hand select national team players from around the world. It'll be 24 players who are selected per gender. And so I'm finding that hopefully we'll find out within the next couple of weeks if I'm one of those players and if I'll be competing in Paris this July, which would naturally be a dream come true. It'd be a culmination of the past decade's worth of work to be a part of. But before that, the month before, there's a world championship. It's actually going to be over my birthday. It's June 8th through June 13th in China, that my national team will try to qualify for in March in, I believe, Puerto Rico. So with my national team and compete in Puerto Rico in March, and if we finish top two, be in a world championship in China in June, and then hopefully playing in Paris. And ultimately, when the Olympics are ultimately resolved, the next Summer Olympic Games are going to be in Los Angeles 2028. And as I mentioned, I'm on the board for USA Team Handball, and that's going to be a whole journey, taking in the interests that we're expecting in people similar to myself in 2008, Americans discovering handball, and then making sure as many of those Americans who discover the game find a place to play, and continuing to grow things domestically and internationally in the handball space, in the beach sports space. Yeah, I've gotten to the point in my life where I've accepted that I don't know exactly what's going to happen. Just try to make the most of every day, continue to grow as a player, and live life at the highest vibration I can, and know that as long as I do that, whatever is going to be in front of me is going to be something that's going to be spectacular. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen over the next 5-10 years. I know the build up to LA 2028 will likely be exciting, but just take it one game at a time, 1 year at a time. And the next competition for me is going to be the North American Caribbean Championship, the World Championship qualifier that I mentioned with my national team in March in Puerto Rico, and just keep the ball rolling from there.
Love it, dude. Oh, I'm so excited, man. You've got a great year planned. And like you said, yeah, there's no need to look, 5, 10 years into all we can control is this breath right now and this time right now. And this, like you said, that throw right then, that 360 chuck left-handed with your foot, maybe next time, your left foot throw, you transfer it as you're doing a front flip, like crazy. But that's awesome, man. I'm so excited for your journey. This was an incredible conversation. I'm sure so many people are going to get some incredible value. I thank you so much for your time. You're the man, dude. I wish you the best this season. I can't wait to hear that you are in Paris 2024. I totally have a great feeling about that, and I can't wait to hear and see that from you. And yeah, just excited for you, man. Thanks so much for being here.
No, man, pleasure was mine. It's so good to be able to catch up with you and reminisce on the journey since we first met in 2016. It's definitely my pleasure to be able to do this with you. And I'll send you things I promised to send you. I know the aim dexterity presentation I mentioned, and a couple other things, just so you have that as well. I think you'll definitely enjoy that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to be sending you a lot of funky random workout things that I find, and I'm sure we'll just keep it rolling, keep the weird going.